Just 5 minutes ago, a shocking event unfolded in the city of Duma. Power shifted dramatically, shattering the delicate balance of authority. The Minister of Defense, Andrei Rymyevich Belausov, rushed into the Grand Hall and made a bold move, establishing a public space with one of the nation's most influential banks, Gertman-Ugrev. The atmosphere was electric, tension thickening the air like a brewing storm. When the representative from Gertman-Ugrev spoke, he delivered unsettling news: an elderly pensioner, still alive and well, was to be compelled to pay for his savings anew. The room grew heavy with anticipation. Belausov, visibly exhausted, uttered a phrase that echoed through the silence. "I am too tired to rest," he said. His words cast a bleak shadow, revealing the blindness of those in power who fail to see what truly matters. As the conversation turned to Valentin Matvienko, Belausov's eyes fluttered shut. He sank into his chair, a subtle symbol of control and detachment. His question hung in the air: why did he clap? It was meant to provoke, meant to surprise. "Listen until the end, you'll be amazed," he warned, a cryptic promise. Support us by liking the video, subscribing to the channel, and sharing your thoughts. Do you agree with Belausov? He left the room with a calculated nonchalance, as if people mattered little in his grand scheme, ignoring reactions, avoiding any show of emotion. His door closed softly behind him, an almost imperceptible sound, yet that simple act seemed to ripple through the space, subtly altering the entire atmosphere. Inside, the hall was a sanctuary of seriousness. Belausov had spent countless hours here, understanding the weight of his role. High ceilings symbolized the fragile hopes of the nation, long tables with microphones represented the battleground of ideas. Nobody spoke loudly, confidence was their language. Disputes were rare, skepticism frowned upon. Instead, explanations followed, each doubt, each voice dissected with precision. Belausov sat calm, almost puzzled, yet beneath that calm lurked an unlawful challenge, a careful introspection of the shadows and lights within himself. His dark gray suit, simple yet impeccable, resonated with authority: no flamboyance, no distraction, just a perfect balance of strength and restraint. His face, sharp but not stern, betrayed nothing, but in his eyes flickered a shadowed smile, almost unnoticed but full of hidden meaning. The silence was deliberate, crafted to focus. It was as if the floor was a cradle of quiet, intentional, and measured. From a curious observer's perspective, Belausov's gaze wasn't just directed at a person, it sought the underlying logic behind each word, the reasoning, the unspoken truths buried beneath the surface of the discussion. This hall was not just a chamber of debate, it was a battlefield of ideas and intentions. Here, confidence was silent, doubts were expressed subtly. No one dared to question openly, they spoke in code, in symbols of certainty. Belausov, watching carefully, knew that the core of his role was acting, maintaining a balance between power and humility, between challenge and submission. Today, he arrived not as a mere official, but as a guardian of the fragile order. Days filled with unspoken words, numerical calculations with no room for error, these were his reality. He came driven by professional passion, internal peace, and a desire to steer the country's economy from the front lines. He listened from the back of the hall, the last to speak this year. Economists flooded the room, an endless parade of charts, graphs, and forecasts. Their words sounded robotic, almost disconnected from the pulse of life. The reality was cold, calculated energy flows like a German-engineered system, predictable and precise. As the presentation continued, Belausov's mind dissected each slide, each number, each arrow pointing towards the uncertain future. The room felt heavy with the scent of determination and apprehension. The faces on the screen reflected unwavering confidence, yet those in the room knew this was all part of a carefully constructed illusion. The discussion moved to the banking sector's struggles, the mounting weight of credit activity, and the sobering reality that society's needs threaten economic stability. The speaker's voice was steady, inflexible, like machinery executing its programmed task. The message was clear: tighten the belts, prepare for what's coming next. The hall grew silent, the tension palpable, as if everyone felt the very ground beneath them trembling. The official continued, emphasizing the need to reduce social benefits, pensions, welfare, anything that could destabilize the system. The words hung heavy in the air: support for the financial stability requires sacrifices. The audience's faces remained impassive. Absorbing the message without reaction, some took notes, others simply nodded, silent witnesses to this calculated austerity. In the shadows, Belausov observed all this silently. His presence was measured, grounded, unwavering. His fingers tensed slightly, an internal response to the weight of the moment. His gaze tracked every detail, every hesitation, every silence, each a piece in this complex puzzle of governance. He knew that beneath the surface of these cold calculations lies a question: how much can a nation endure before breaking? His role was to navigate that fragile line, balancing truth and illusion, power and restraint. The room's atmosphere was thick, an electrified silence that foreshadowed the storm to come. The future was uncertain, but Belausov understood the unspoken rule: survival depends on control, mastery of the unseen forces shaping the world's fate. 5 minutes ago, in the heart of the city of Duma, chaos erupted. An event so shocking that it now throws the authorities into turmoil. The Minister of Defense, Andrei Remievich Belausov, quickly entered the hall, establishing a tense atmosphere among the elite. His arrival wasn't just physical, it was electric, leaving a ripple of anticipation and fear in its wake. What secret truths was he about to unveil that could shatter the fragile stability? As Belausov addressed the audience, he cut through the clutter with an unwavering presence. He demanded silence, his figure cloaked in a dark, unadorned gray suit, no distractions, no words that aimed to impress. His face, sharp yet not harsh, held a quiet strength. The room was designed for silence, for reflection, an arena where confidence was measured not in loud voices but in composed authority. Did they sense the storm brewing behind that calm exterior? The corners of his lips barely curled into a shadow of a smile, an almost imperceptible hint of danger that said, "I've seen too much to be easily fooled." He chose his seat slightly to the side, avoiding the spotlight. He wasn't there to dominate but to observe. As the country's defense minister, he carried an internal burden: years of decisions, sleepless nights, knowing that beneath this polished facade, higher stakes were at play. His days were filled with numbers and solutions, but tonight, his purpose was different, an instinct driven not just by duty but by a profound desire to understand the future of the economy and the fragile machinery of power. The hall was packed with invited economists, too many. Almost as if this was a staged performance. Plans, diagrams, graphs flickered on the screen, a visual symphony of logic and data. Yet beneath that surface, something felt off. The atmosphere was thick with unspoken truths. You could hear the subtle hum of anticipation, the faint rustle of papers, the clicking of pens, the nervous energy hanging in the air like a thundercloud ready to explode. Belausov watched silently, his gaze piercing through the noise. Watching each slide, each arrow pointing to an uncertain future. The room's climate was tense, expected, yet volatile. Could this calm veneer hide a coming storm? Or were they already trapped in a web of lies and half-truths? As the discussion continued, it became clear, beneath the surface of these numbers and graphics lay a deeper, more dangerous story. Suddenly, the room's atmosphere shifted. A whisper echoed, an uneasy realization that something far more significant than economic forecasts was unfolding. The pieces of the puzzle were moving, unseen but felt, and Belausov's silent stare suggested he already knew the outcome. The question now hanging in the air: are we all blind to the impending catastrophe looming just beyond our perception? The answer was buried in the shadows of his eyes, hiding a truth that could change everything. 5 minutes ago, in the city of Duma, chaos erupted. The authorities are scrambling to control the fallout. In response, Defense Minister Andrei Remievich Belausov stormed into the hall, transforming it into a fortress of influence. He positioned himself decisively beside a major bank, Gertmanugrev, making a statement to the nation. As Belausov's voice echoed, he questioned the very foundation of trust, his words sharp, deliberate. The tone was unyielding, challenging everyone present. Why did he applaud? Why did he stay silent? His gaze was icy, piercing. Listen to this: what he said next will shatter your perception of power and truth. Supported only by the silent gaze of the room, Belausov closed his eyes briefly, then turned away. His retreat felt like the end of an era, yet it was merely the beginning of something darker. No applause followed. No acknowledgement. Just a heavy silence stretching across the hall. The room, once filled with anticipation, grew cold and tense. Behind that composed exterior is a man who knows the game's rules, tall, statuesque, dressed in an unassuming dark gray suit. No ornamentation, no distractions, just sharp lines, unblinking confidence. His face is calm but unmistakably aware. His presence commands without a word. From his vantage point, he sees the others, some confident, others nervous, all waiting for the next move. Today, Belausov is no ordinary minister. He embodies a different kind of power, one rooted in internal strength, silent threat, and strategic patience. He's here not to convince, but to observe and decide. His days are filled with plans, numbers, and silent calculations, moments that hide behind the facade of public speech. He listens intently as experts speak about the country's economy, each graph, each chart a piece in the complex puzzle. Lines and arrows flicker on screens, predicting growth, signaling danger. Everything seems perfectly logical, the kind of logic that can mask chaos beneath its surface. The experts speak confidently, yet a shadow of doubt flickers behind Belausov's eyes. The discussion turns to the banking system, its struggles, its burdens. The speakers talk about rising credit activity, heavier financial loads, and the challenges faced by ordinary citizens. His mind registers every word, every hesitation. He senses the undercurrent of anxiety. People worry about loans, pensions, survival. Suddenly, the room's atmosphere shifts. Someone raises a voice. Someone challenges the narrative. The pensioners, perhaps the most vulnerable, are mentioned, living better now than in the past, yet the cracks are unavoidable. The speaker pauses, knowing this is a dangerous truth unspoken. The glow of confidence begins to falter. In the next moment, the speaker, grief, repeats a calculated phrase. In the new year, 2026, we must consider tough reforms. The words hang heavy. Red flags wave in Belausov's mind. The idea of cutting social benefits, pensions, this plan is not just numbers. It's lives. It's resilience ripping apart at the seams. He watches as grief continues. The room grows quieter. The crowd is divided, some nodding, others disturbed. The future they face is built on these fragile promises. Yet, a question lingers: what will happen when the truth finally breaks through the facade? When the silent truth of the people's suffering is exposed? Belausov silently contemplates the man who dares dictate these harsh measures. His own muscles tense, sensing the approaching storm. The air thickens, faint sense of anticipation and dread. The moment of decision is near. But will he act? Or let silent chaos unfold? In this hall of power, secrets are buried beneath polished words. Belausov understands it all. What's coming is not just economic reform, it's a storm. And no one can escape its shadow. 5 minutes ago, in the heart of Duma city, chaos erupted. The authorities are now intertwined with a shocking incident that has everyone on edge. The city's calm shattered suddenly, with screams echoing through the streets, and officials scrambling to respond. What could have triggered such a collapse? The answers are coming to light now, revealing secrets that threaten the very core of power. In the wake of the turmoil, Defense Minister Andrei Rymyevich Belausov stepped into the public eye. Without hesitation, he entered a grand hall, transforming the atmosphere with a commanding presence. This space, a symbol of authority, a place of decision, felt heavy with anticipation. Standing before a powerful bank, the Gurkmenyugrev, Belausov exuded a mix of fatigue and resolve. His words cut through the silence, referencing the aging pensioner who now faced new burdens, remarkably alive amidst the chaos, blamed for the turmoil that had erupted. He was exhausted, yet his voice was steady. "I am too tired to rest," he said softly but with conviction, "and the police are blind." His gaze was distant, yet his mind was sharp, as he tried to connect seemingly disconnected threads: Valentin Matvienko's involvement, the public unrest, the fragile stability. Inside, a storm brewed, something unspoken, a silent warning that the system was nearing its breaking point. His presence was austere, dark gray suit, immaculate and severe, perfectly fitting a man who bears the weight of unspoken truths. His face was sharp but not aggressive, it reflected years of silent battles, unresolved conflicts that now threatened to explode. The hall, with its high ceilings and long tables lined with microphones, felt like a sanctuary of control. Here, words were measured, calm, confident. No shouting, no chaos. Only calculated reasoning. Belausov, standing slightly apart from the crowd, watched with a composed yet guarded expression. His posture was firm, but his eyes betrayed a mind racing with dangerous possibilities. The room's silence grew deafening as he assessed his opponents and allies alike. This was not a day for theatrics. No needless gestures or theatrics, only the unyielding presence of someone who has seen too much to believe in comforting lies. His face etched with resolve, he sat in shadows, an observer inside the epicenter of power. From his vantage point, he was calculating every word, every move, knowing that what he saw in others was a mirror of the vulnerabilities beneath the surface. The meeting moved forward, with economic forecasts and policies filling the air, charts and slides projecting certainty, but hiding the cracks beneath. As figures rose and fell on the screen, arrows pointing up, down, perspective shifting, beneath it all, a different truth lurked. It was a story of fading confidence, slow decay, the quiet unraveling of a nation's stability. Belausov listened carefully. His instincts told him this wasn't just about numbers or policies. It was about people. Ordinary lives, teetering on the brink. The whispers of economic despair, the unease spreading like wildfire, invisible yet suffocating. The discussion about credit activity, pensions, social benefits, each phrase a needle in his consciousness. Piercing through the facade of normalcy. He saw the fear in the hall, the palpable tension that grew with each passing second. The officials, the advisors, all uncertain, like passengers caught in a storm. The moment was ripe for something unexpected. The finance minister, Grief, spoke confidently about adaptation, that change was painful but necessary. Yet, beneath his words, Belausov detected a lie, a crack in the armor of logic. The truth was clear, the very system designed to stabilize was now strangling itself. The banking sector burdened by regulations, the cost of modernization, the schemes that once promised growth now warning of collapse. The phrase adaptation echoed through the hall, yet Belausov felt the ground tremble beneath his feet. Was this survival or the beginning of the end? As Grief outlined the grim necessity to reduce social benefits, including pensions, Belausov's face remained impassive. Inside, a storm raged. This was not a simple policy shift, it was a threat to millions of lives. The quiet whispers of discontent grew louder. Could the nation withstand such a blow? Or was this collapse inevitable? In that moment, Belausov's mind raced. He saw a future where hope dimmed, replaced by uncertainty and fear. He knew the stakes. The system's logic was precise, a formula that could either save or destroy. But what was the real cost? The people's trust? Their lives? His heart pounded with the weight of unspoken consequences. He remained silent as Grief continued, speaking of mathematics and stability, yet the underlying message was clear. The system had reached its limit. The mechanism that held everything together was fraying, threads unraveling silently. The words modernization and reform sounded hollow against the backdrop of growing chaos. Suddenly, an unexpected image flashed in Belausov's mind, the old military hospitals, the women behind humanitarian aid, faces etched with struggle and resilience. They knew the truth, simple, raw, brutal. They understood the sacrifices required to keep a country afloat. But could the current leadership grasp it? Could they face reality without losing their grip? As the presentation ended, Belausov's fingers burned with quiet anger, a slow, building fire beneath his calm exterior. The hall had shifted. Not with applause, but with awareness. He saw the cracks hidden not just in policies but in the very soul of the nation. He knew deep down that what had been built might crumble if urgent action was not taken. The future hung in the balance. Would the political machine merely tighten its grip? Or could there be a way back from the brink? This story of power, fear, and unseen battles has only just begun. 5 minutes ago, chaos erupted in the heart of Duma city. The authorities are now under siege. A startling event that sent shockwaves through the government halls. Justice trembled on the edge of collapse. This isn't just a story, it's a revelation of power, betrayal, and secrets hidden in plain sight. At the center stands Defense Minister Andrei Belausov. He strides into the room, instantly commanding attention with a calm that feels almost icy. His presence is imposing, tall, dressed in a dark, unadorned suit that seems to absorb the very light around him. Without a word, he sets up in the heart of the hall, a symbolic place reserved for the nation's most influential figures, trusted banks, political elites, and decision-makers. Everything quiets, anticipation thick in the air. Belausov's approach is deliberate. He looks over the assembled crowd, men and women of power, his gaze sharp, almost piercing. He doesn't speak loudly, but his words hit harder than any shout. Confidence radiates from him, but beneath that calm lies a storm. A quiet storm that promises to shake every foundation. shadows flicker behind his eyes, hinting at secrets he alone holds. He takes his seat, sullen yet composed, in a chair that silently bears the weight of expectations. The room is a chamber of silent judgment, every sound muffled, every breath deliberate. The ceiling above, high and vast, seems to press down, emphasizing the gravity of the moment. No one dares to break the silence. They listen, hanging on every word, the immune whispers of policies, prognoses, warnings. Belausov remains unshaken. His gaze is fixed but thoughtful. His face is a mask, sharp, yet unreadable. Dressed in a dark gray suit, devoid of any unnecessary embellishments, he embodies restrained authority. His posture is relaxed but ready, a predator patiently waiting, observing. The air around him feels heavy with unspoken truths. In the corner, a faint smile flickers, a shadow of amusement, perhaps. Or perils yet unseen. It's a smile that hints at knowing more than he lets on. His eyes do not linger, they scan, analyze, and judge. It's as if he's been through this countless times before, unfazed by the spectacle. His mind works quickly, processing facts, calculating risks, weighing every detail. The hall is filled with whispers of economic discussions, plans, graphs, and projections. Numbers flicker on screens, lines rising and falling, arrows pointing into the future. Everything appears logical, almost too perfect. Yet, beneath the surface, a sense of unease brews. A quiet tension that defies the carefully laid plans. Belausov's focus sharpens. He notes the words of the expert speaking, an economist named Grief. The man's voice echoes across the room, steady and confident, describing the banking sector's struggles, the soaring levels of credit activity. The air fills with the scent of dust and stale equipment. The words are familiar. Yet, behind the calm, a subtle question arises: what isn't being said? Grief's tone is clinical, almost detached. He explains how the financial system is growing heavier, burdened with mounting debts and tightening regulations. He speaks of stabilization, of calculations, of mathematical rules that govern everything. He describes how banks are forced to adapt, sometimes painfully, changing their structures, programs, and policies. But then, a quiet ripple and undercurrent of discontent comes through. Some voices in the hall question the direction. How much longer can this system hold? Is stability just an illusion? The whispers hint at a deeper unrest and undercurrent of uncertainty about the future. Belausov listens intently. His senses sharpen. He's internalizing every detail, the faint scent of aged paper, the faint hum of air conditioning, the subtle pressure on his fingers pressing into his palms. He feels a strange warmth, a mixture of frustration and resolve surging within. It's a feeling he knows well, the burden of responsibility, the weight of leadership. Grief continues, suggesting that returning to traditional stimulation could revive the credit market. His words are straightforward, almost echoing old war stories of soldiers, of aid, of sacrifice. There's an undertone of nostalgia, of a time when things were simpler, more robust. He talks of a past when action drove the economy, credits, investments, growth. Now, everything seems frozen, caught between calculation and desperation. A pause settles again, thick and deliberate. Belausov's gaze shifts subtly, his thoughts racing. He's seen this pattern before. He feels the familiar heat of anger, a burning that slowly intensifies. Things must change. The silence stretches for a moment, an unspoken challenge. Next to him sits Valentina Matvienko, listening. Her calm presence adds weight. A reassuring anchor amid the storm of ideas. Her voice cuts through the tension, more measured, more nuanced. She speaks about transparency and modern tools, about reform, future policies, and the need for clarity in governance. As the room remains tense, Belausov's mind flashes back to the past, memories of soldiers defending wounded comrades in military hospitals, women behind humanitarian aid lines, faces etched with worry but filled with resilience. These images sharpen his focus. He senses the true battle is not just economic but moral. He ponders the need to reinvigorate the credit system, remembering the days of more active borrowing, when economy thrived on risks and bold moves. His thoughts are clear: stimulating the people is the only way forward. But who will listen, and who will oppose? The stakes are higher than any graph or figure. His hands, previously resting, now tighten slightly. A slow, almost imperceptible movement. The question is no longer what, but who will lead this charge. Who will dare to shake the foundations? The answers are lurking just beneath the surface, waiting to erupt. Belausov recognizes the final act is near. It's time for decisive action, or the system will crumble. The room holds its breath, awaiting his next move. The future hinges on a single choice, one that could reshape the course of the nation forever. And in this silence, secrets begin to stir, hidden, deadly, inevitable. Just moments ago, the atmosphere in the hall shifted profoundly. Tense silence wrapped around the room, as if the air itself had thickened. It was as if everyone sensed an invisible storm brewing. What happened inside that room changed everything, a silent warning that the future is no longer certain. In the dim glow of the chandeliers, the people who once spoke confidently now sat quietly, trembling underneath their formal masks. The whispers of doubt and fear grew louder, blending with the faint hum of air conditioning. Every tick of the clock sounded like a countdown. Could this be the end of the facade? Suddenly, a figure at the center, seemingly composed but burning with internal pressure, paused. His fingers seemed to pulse with an almost dangerous heat, trembling but unyielding. It was a slow, deliberate growl of internal conflict, highlighting a relentless tension that he couldn't suppress. The room seemed to shrink, crowded with unspoken questions. What was this terrible weight pressing down? He finished speaking, then paused, a deliberate, heavy silence. Everyone waited. You could feel it, something had just shifted. The man knew it, too. Valentina Matvienko sat just beside him, quietly listening, her face betraying no emotion. But beneath her composed exterior, a silent understanding flickered. This moment was pivotal. Why was she here? Was she perceiving the same underlying threat? The room remained still, yet an electric charge lingered. Quiet whispers traced the edges of the silence, shadows of doubt creeping into the corners. He felt the subtle shift in the atmosphere. Like a storm gathering just out of sight. Was this the calm before the inevitable upheaval? The tension was tangible, a heavy fog of impending change. The question hovered, what secrets will unravel when the silence finally bursts? 5 minutes ago, chaos erupted in the city of Duma. The authorities are now under siege. The Minister of Defense, Andrei Remievich Belausov, swiftly entered the hall, transforming it into a platform for confrontation. His presence commands attention, a tall, imposing figure, clad in a dark, unadorned suit that whispers authority. As he steps up, the room falls silent, waiting for what's to come. After a brief pause, Belausov speaks with a calm that masks a storm beneath. His words carry weight, but behind his composed exterior, tension crackles through the air. He criticizes the banking system, laments the social cost of economic reforms, and questions whether the people truly benefit. The air thickens, can he see through the facade of stability? Or is he hiding in inner turmoil? His gaze is sharp, scrutinizing every face, every reaction, as if to reveal secrets hidden beneath the surface. The audience is tense. Blank stare, some shift uncomfortably. The echoes of spoken numbers and reports fade into a backdrop of nervous silence. The hall's old wood creaks softly under the weight of unspoken questions. Is our economy truly resilient? Or are we teetering on the edge of collapse? Belausov's voice remains steady, but his mind races. Every sentence a calculated move, emotional, yet disciplined. He challenges the very foundation of their plans, hinting that something unseen is unraveling. Suddenly, a new voice interrupts. Valentina Matvienko, seated beside him, speaks with a softer tone but no less conviction. She emphasizes transparency, modern tools, and the need for clear strategies. Her words cut through the dense atmosphere like a blade, hinting at a future where trust and truth prevail. She invites the hall to imagine a different world, one where public confidence isn't just a facade, but a reality. Yet, beneath her calm lies an unspoken question: is this the awakening we need, or just another illusion? As her voice echoes, Belausov's face remains composed. His eyes glitter with an unreadable emotion, disappointment, resolve, or perhaps defiance. Does he believe in their plans, or is he secretly plotting a different course? The room hangs in suspense, breathless. The future hangs on a thin thread, woven from policies, fears, and unspoken truths. Every detail, every gesture matters now, because behind the silence, a storm is brewing. And so, the meeting continues. Numbers flicker on screens, up, down, oscillating, yet none of it fully captures what truly lies beneath. The hall's walls seem to close in, echoing with the weight of unspoken fears. The question remains, are we moving towards salvation or imminent disaster? Belausov's final words linger, a warning veiled as a promise. Because in this room, amid shadows and light, the fate of the country is silently decided. 5 minutes ago, the city of Duma was rocked by shocking events. The authorities are now embroiled in chaos. In the heart of this turmoil, Defense Minister Andrei Belausov rushed into the hall, swiftly establishing a public space with one of the country's most powerful banks, Gurtman. His entrance was not just a gesture but a signal of tension and authority. As the room hummed with anxious whispers, Belausov took the stand, his presence commanding and cold, ready to confront the storm. What secrets did he hide behind his composed exterior? Could this calm be a facade hiding chaos beneath? Stay tuned as the story unfolds, revealing hidden conflicts and unexpected twists. Belausov's departure from the hall was silent, almost ghostly. No fanfare, no dramatic exit, just a quiet close of the door. Yet, in that quiet, something shifted dramatically. The atmosphere grew heavy, dense with unspoken tension. The air seemed to tighten, as if the very walls were holding on to secrets. This was no ordinary gathering, it was a calculated moment where power, fear, and uncertainty collided. Belausov knew how to look at people, assessing with sharp eyes that missed nothing. His expression was stoic but piercing, revealing a man who had seen too much and yet understood even more. Could he be the only one aware of the impending storm? The room's silence was deafening, its stillness hiding a brewing tempest. What truths did Belausov conceal, and what revelations awaited? The story continues, darker truths are about to emerge. The hall was packed, yet Belausov seemed detached. Observing everything with a calm that belied the chaos simmering beneath. The high ceilings echoed with murmurs of worry and plans of survival. Microphones sat expectantly on long tables, ready to capture voices that might threaten stability. Here, words were chosen carefully, debates were held in hushed tones. Responsibility hung heavy in the air, a game of power where challenges were met with unwavering resolve. Belausov's presence commanded silent respect, his demeanor was neither boastful nor submissive but precisely balanced. He wore a dark gray suit, unadorned yet impeccable, like a statue of authority. The room and its inhabitants focused on him, as if sensing that the fate of the nation depended on his next move. When pride and fear collide, who emerges victorious? The answer lies ahead. In the midst of this political theater, the Minister of Defense appeared almost detached, a figure of quiet authority rather than chaos. His sharp features and piercing gaze cut through the room's murmur. The tension was palpable, vibrating in every corner. His voice was steady, measured, like the hum of an engine ready to unleash power at any moment. He listened intently, absorbing every word, every gesture. His mind was racing, calculating the risks. The audience watched him with bated breath, each listener holding onto every syllable. His reputation was built on calm decision-making amid turmoil. Yet beneath that silence, the storm was brewing. Would he act? Or simply watch as events spiraled? The moment of truth approaches, what will his next move be? The audacity of the situation was almost surreal. As Belausov quietly observed, a wave of skepticism swept over the room. The atmosphere grew tense, like the air before a storm. The halls echoed with the faint clicks of microphones and the restless shifting of seats. A voice emerged, steady yet distant, talking of economy, stability, and future plans. But beneath the surface, everyone sensed an unspoken question: are these words enough? Does anyone truly believe in these numbers? As the debate moved forward, a new figure entered, a shadow of doubt, lurking behind each confident phrase. Could that shadow unravel everything? The stage was set for chaos or salvation. The story is far from over. What hidden card will Belausov play next? The moment had reached a boiling point in the heart of the city known as Duma. Just 5 minutes ago, chaos erupted in the halls of power, startling everyone. Now, the top defense minister, Andrei Belausov, stepped into the scene with a commanding presence. His face was calm but intense, as he met the influential banking leader, Gurtman, in a tense confrontation that would shake the very foundations of the nation. Doors closed softly behind him, yet the air grew heavier, filled with unspoken tension. Belausov, tired from endless battles and political games, addressed the gathering with quiet authority. As he spoke, he made it clear that survival today depends on strength, not words. His voice cut through the silence, edged with fatigue but also with unwavering resolve. The room, filled with powerful figures, seemed to hold its breath. They knew this moment wasn't just about money or policies, it was about the future of the nation itself. With a glance that commanded respect, Belausov declared that the country's fate was more fragile than anyone believed, yet also within their grasp to mend. Supporters and opponents alike sensed how much weight rested on his words. Would he unravel the complex web of lies, or tighten its grip? As he turned to leave, he pressed the door shut, sealing a chapter that would leave lasting scars. What secrets lay behind his calm exterior? Would his quiet strength topple the hidden powers controlling the country? The answers remained cloaked in shadows, promising that the real battle was just beginning. 5 minutes prior, in the bustling city of Duma, a sudden upheaval had shattered the calm. The authorities scrambled to understand what had happened, but the chaos was unquestionable. The minister's swift actions indicated something far more dangerous was unfolding, something that threatened to strip away the illusion of stability and reveal devastating truths. In the heart of the political arena, a storm was brewing. The hall's silence was deafening, heavy with anticipation and dread. Leaders sat rigid, eyes fixed, breaths held tight. A simple act, the closing of a door, became a symbol of impending change. Andrei Belausov, a towering figure in military and political circles, entered quietly but with purpose. His presence was like a calm before a storm, steady, unyielding. His dark gray suit, flawless and understated, concealed a mind sharpened by years of battle. He knew what had to be said, and he knew the stakes were higher than ever. This wasn't just a meeting, it was the crossroads of a nation teetering on the brink. He looked around, assessing, weighing each face. Confidence and restraint radiated from him, no theatrics, no showmanship. Just every movement deliberate, every word measured. His voice was calm but formidable, addressing issues of national importance. He spoke of economic stability, of banks and credits, but beneath his words lurked a deeper message, the stability of the country itself. As he spoke, the atmosphere grew tense. Some in the room were caught off guard, others silently nodding, understanding the hidden implications. The room was filled with calculations, projections, charts flickering on screens eerily mechanical. Almost unreal in their precision. Yet, beneath that cold veneer, a storm of uncertainty moved like a shadow. Belausov's words carried weight. He argued that the core of the economy must serve the people, not the other way around. His stance was clear: policies must be balanced, social benefits carefully adjusted, or risk plunging the nation into chaos. His gaze swept the room, no one dared to challenge him. The message was universal: stability was fragile, and the price of misstep could be disastrous. In this tense moment, the room felt suspended and almost tangible silence. Every word, every gesture, was under scrutiny. Outside, the city continued unaware of the unfolding crisis, its streets humming with life. Inside, on this decisive day, the future was written in quiet but firm tones, yet no one could predict if Belausov's calm would be enough to steer the country away from the abyss. Just as the meeting seemed to resolve into routine, a sudden, jarring reminder of reality pierced through. The real threat was invisible but imminent. The fight was far from over, it was only beginning. Would Belausov dominate the shadows of power, or fall victim to their ruthless pull? The answer lurked behind the thousand unspoken questions that hung thick in the air. In an instant, everything shifted. A whisper of impending chaos, a promise of upheaval. This was the true nature of power, concealed beneath layers of quiet authority and unseen dangers. Who would stand firm when chaos finally arrived? The game of survival had already begun, and time was running out. 5 minutes ago, in the city of Duma, chaos erupted. The authorities are now facing an unprecedented crisis. The Minister of Defense, Andrei Belausov, immediately entered the hall and created a public space with one of the most powerful banks in the country, Grev. As soon as the name Grev was mentioned, a startling truth emerged: the veteran in power was still very much alive, and he would have to pay for his actions in the new year. Belausov, tired and worn out, uttered a phrase that revealed his exhaustion. He was too drained to rest, his police officers seemingly blind to the chaos around them. In an attempt to connect with the audience, Valentin Matvienko tried to intervene, but Belausov, with a cold stare, closed his eyes and sank into his chair, signaling the end of the discussion. His voice was calm but firm. Why did they even applaud? Listen carefully till the end, you will be amazed at what unfolds next. Support our channel with a like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments. Belausov's words cut through the silence, almost as if he didn't need to look at anyone to understand the room's tension. He quietly exited the stage, leaving behind an air of emptiness and unresolved conflict. The hall, with its towering ceiling and long tables lined with microphones, was designed for confident, authoritative conversations. Here, no one spoke loudly, everyone spoke with purpose, explaining doubts without arguing, doubting without dismissing. Belausov, cloaked in a simple, dark gray suit, looked sharp yet unassuming. His face was defined, eyes sharp. Yet there was a trace of a faint smile, almost like a shadow, hinting at understanding too deep for words. The room's silence emphasized his presence. Not because of bravado, but because of a deliberate calm that challenged the chaos. He observed everything, not with emotion, but with calculated logic. His posture was composed, exuding a quiet authority that demanded respect. The space itself seemed to hold its breath, awaiting his next move. In this moment, Belausov understood that the real battle wasn't on this stage but in the shadows, within every decision made behind closed doors. The economy, the politics, the trust, everything was a delicate balance on the edge of collapse. This room, full of power and influence, was just the surface. Beneath it, the true conflict simmered, where real threats lurked, unseen but felt. He knew things others dared not say aloud. The hall was filled with the scent of tension, the faint rustling of papers, and the hum of whispered fears. Shadows played in the corners, and every glance exchanged carried a hidden message. Belausov's gaze was unwavering. He understood that today's true power was in knowing what others refused to admit. The room was quiet now, but beneath that silence, the storm was gathering. What secrets does this hall hold? What truths are hidden behind Belausov's calm facade? The answers lay beneath the surface, waiting for the right moment to erupt. And as he sat there, silently observing, a question loomed: who truly holds the power in this game, and who is about to be exposed? The story continues to unfold, revealing a complex web of influence, betrayal, and unforeseen twists, where one's calm exterior can hide the storm of a nation on the brink. Belausov spoke with precision, adapting the system's cold logic. He repeated that word "its system" as if mocking its emptiness. Comfortable words, yet distant. He shifted sideways, not just his view, but the entire lens of the debate. Talking about the system that way isolates it from real lives. But a system without people? Mere rules on paper. Code. Nothing more. He scanned the room again. And now, tell me, how does this system care for someone who can't pay a bill? Laughter rippled through the hall, nervous murmurs, touches of unease. What's so funny? How does credit logic guide a retiree? Keep going. Does it value the money for food, for medicine that lasts? His tone stayed even, but each question landed like a blow. You claim past credits fueled activity. I say this instead. People trusted more, knew less, exploited in that blind faith. He paused, letting the echo settle. Exploited. The word hung there, like a verdict. Sharp and undeniable. Hall stirred. Chair squeaks, restless shifts, as if fleeing the weight. Tension thickened, air heavy with unspoken threats. I get it, he pressed on, credit drives interest. Business thrives. But the state? Not a game of profits. He leaned in, gaze lingering too long, piercing eyes on faces. When you fix bank woes by slashing retiree safety, you cross a line, abandon what's human. Grev fidgeted, sweat beading on his brow, the salty sting of nerves. Belausov shot back, no drama intended. No chaos here. Just reforms. Reforms, repeated Belausov, hollow promises. He tilted his head slightly. Sure. For those being reformed. But what of them now? In the gripping shadows of power, a minister's voice cuts through. Can you imagine the storm brewing in that opulent hall, where fortunes and fates collide? What if slashing pensions isn't just policy, it's betrayal? Feel the cool marble under clammy palms, the faint scent of polished wood and unspoken dread. Hearts pound like distant thunder, as unseen battles erupt. Just moments ago, in the veiled dance of resource shifts, Belausov, the iron-willed defender, calmly challenged Grev's detachment. The question hung naked, no escape, a plea for humanity amid mechanical cruelty. Grev faltered, words jamming like rusted gears. No mere tweak, this touched survival's core. Procession rippled, seats creaking as observers leaned in, eyes darting to neighbors in wary hush. "Did you realize," whispered the sharp truth, "what befalls someone who can't cover a debt card?" No reply needed, the sting was clear, starvation's cruel embrace, eviction's bitter bite. And now, in this forged helix of defiance, the air thickens with revolt. What twist will shatter illusions next? Will humility crumble the elite, or ignite a deeper fire? Tune in, for the veil tears wider. In the previous part, Grig tried to dismiss the objection. Andrei Remievich Belausov spoke up, his voice tinged with frustration. He argued that real issues weren't being addressed. Thoughts turned to correction, but Belausov countered with thoughtful words. He nodded slightly, urging continuation only for those truly in need of correction. Who dares to sacrifice the vulnerable? What if you're the one grappling with unpaid debts? A hushed murmur swept through the room. Chairs creaked as people shifted uncomfortably. Shoulders brushed against polished wood, the faint scent of polished leather mingling with tension. Hearts pounded beneath starched shirts, fingers gripping the edges of tables marked by years of heated debates. This isn't just a correction. It's a matter of survival. The words cut deep, pulling gasps from the audience. Eyes darted sideways, neighbors exchanging uneasy glances. Whispers hissed softly, like escaping steam. You know, Belausov continued, his tone steady yet laced with fire, what happens to someone who can't cover their credit? They don't obsess over bank stability. Their world shrinks to the next month's struggle. The grinding fear of loss eats away at their nights. Grig fell silent. His confidence crumbled, slipping away like sand through fingers. He avoided Belausov's piercing gaze, unsure how to reclaim control. Faces in the room twisted in surprise, the air thick with unspoken pressure. I repeat, Belausov pressed on, voice rising with emphasis, pension should rise, not fall. If the banking sector faces hardship, find solutions within it. Don't shift the burden to the weakest links. He paused again, letting the silence hang. It bristled with electricity, raw and alive. The weight of responsibility pressed on every listener, a cold sweat forming on palms. Grig rummaged in his pocket, eyes downcast. He hunted for formulas that wouldn't come, his usual poise shattered. Murmurs rippled through the chairs. A tablet snapped shut for the first time. Slow applause built, tentative at first, then echoing off the high walls. Belausov remained composed, no raised voices, just words born of conviction. In that instant, the bank's defenses cracked. The pause dragged on, heavier than lead. Normally, they'd fill it with a joke or swift change of topic, but not here. The room absorbed every second, pulse racing with anticipation. That was when Valentina Ivanovna Matvienko stepped in. She straightened her posture, commanding yet serene, a beacon amid the crowd drawn together for such pivotal moments. Her deep navy suit hugged her frame, sunlight dancing on the flawless tailoring. Her hair was immaculately arranged, exuding quiet strength. But could her next words tip the scales? What depths of power would she reveal next? 5 minutes ago, chaos erupted in the city of Duma, and now the authorities are struggling to contain it. The Minister of Defense, Andrei Remievich Belausov, quickly entered the Grand Hall, transforming it into a space of power. Before him loomed a massive table, flanked by microphones, silent witnesses to countless decisions. He stood tall, his calm demeanor masking a storm beneath. As he took his place, whispers spread, what secrets would be revealed today? Belausov's presence was commanding, yet cold, a stark contrast to the lively tension in the room. His sharp features, set in a neutral expression, betrayed nothing, no flicker of anxiety, only unwavering focus. Clad in a dark gray suit that blended into the shadows, he sat with an authority that demanded silence. The weight of unseen conflicts pressed down, filling the air with a tense silence, like the calm before a storm. In this high-level chamber, familiar to few, voices spoke softly, confidently. No heated arguments, only precise explanations. Here, doubts and accusations had no place, only purposeful dialogue. Belausov's gaze was steady, penetrating. His face, sharp yet controlled, remained inscrutable. A thin smile hinted at depths unknowable. This man had seen too much to believe in easy explanations. His posture, straight, unyielding, evoked resilience born from countless battles. The room's ceiling soared above, symbolizing the weight of the nation's hopes. Microphones captured every word, every subtle gesture. Belausov's eyes flicked between slides showing economic data, upward lines, downward arrows, and ordered dance of numbers. But behind this veneer of certainty, something was off. The numbers felt cold, lifeless, like a scripted game. The Economist, a confident voice named Grev, shared grim news. The banking sector faced mounting pressure. Credit activity, once lively, now slowed. Pensions, once a promise, now sounded like a burden. People live better now, Grev noted, voice devoid of emotion. But again, poverty is rising, unemployment climbing. A pause, second thoughts hidden behind a calm facade. His words were more than statistics, they echoed unspoken fears. As Grev continued, a shift occurred, a mention of social benefits and pensions, policies meant to protect, yet now becoming a threat. Reducing social support is necessary for stability, he declared, voice echoing in the silent hall. Belausov listened intently, caught a flicker of something troubling in Grev's tone. Inside, a storm was brewing. Was this the truth, or a calculated lie? The room's quiet tension felt suffocating, like the pressure before a seismic shift. Could the nation survive this revelation? Grev's words unfolded a stark reality: cutbacks, austerity, sacrifice. The hall grew heavier. Some nodded, others hesitated, feelings veiled behind stoic masks. He saw the doubts flickering in their eyes, fear of losing what's left. The tangible weight of uncertainty pressed down, thick as the air. The hall's digital screens displayed complex graphs, arrows pointing every direction: up, down, sideways. Everything looked convincing, yet behind the polished surface, shadows lingered. Belausov's gaze pinched, analyzing this carefully crafted facade. Did anyone see the truth beneath? Did they understand the cost? Grev continued, talking about the banking system's burden, how tight financial policies challenge growth. Adaptation is painful, he said softly, almost dismissively. But it's necessary. His words sounded like a mantra: calm, mechanical, unemotional. But behind that calm, Belausov sensed a crack that could crack the entire system wide open. He remembered the faces from the past, those military medics, women in streets offering aid, ordinary people unaware of the policies shaping their futures. They knew the prices of bread, how their lives depended on unseen forces. And now, this room, the core of power, was talking about rules, models, and numbers. All illusion, or a gateway to chaos? Grev concluded with a call for renewed stimulation: more credit, more activity. Words meant to ignite hope, yet carried an undertone of desperation. The idea was simple: stimulate the economy by rekindling the people's personal drive. The hall's mood stiffened, many exchanging hesitant glances. Belausov's eyes flicked to the screen, its lines and arrows forming a convincing lie. Faith in the numbers was like trusting a house of cards. His mind raced: what is real? What is mere illusion designed to pacify? The weight of responsibility pressed heavily. He remembered the faces of those who once fought to defend the country: soldiers, healers, civilians who understood sacrifice better than anyone. They believed in resilience, in hope. And now, he wondered if they had been betrayed. Grev's closing words posed a challenge: return to the roots of genuine support, rekindle the people's trust, boost strength from within. But behind his words, Belausov sensed the truth, fragile as glass, easily shattered. The hall remained silent, holding its breath, waiting for the inevitable tremor. Could stability be maintained? Or was this a facade hiding a deeper collapse? It was clear every decision, every policy, carried heavy consequences. The question now hung in the air: how long can the illusion last before the whole system crumbles? Imagine this: just 5 minutes ago, in the bustling city of Duma, a storm erupted that's now ripping through the highest corridors of power. Defense Minister Andrei Rymyevich Belausov strides into a grand hall, locking eyes with delegates from one of Russia's mightiest banks, Gertman-Ugrev. As the head of the bank, Grev, lays out his chilling vision: slashing pensions in the new year for financial stability, Belausov, worn thin, unleashes a bombshell accusation against the elites. Council Chair Valentina Matvienko tries to intervene, but Belausov shuts the door with a soft click, vanishing like a ghost. The room turns icy, air thick with betrayal, as he leaves without a glance, exposing a system that devours the vulnerable. Part 1. Start with a chill creeping up your spine. What if the people feeding us stories of progress are the wolves in sheep's clothing? Picture the crisp air sharpening into daggers, the scent of polished wood mingling with faint sweat from uneasy glances. In that grand hall, Defense Minister Andrei Rymyevich Belausov had just detonated silence with his raw fury. Leaders from Gurkmenugrev sat rigid, blindsided by his unfiltered blast at the elite. Now, as tempers simmer beneath the surface, the discussion veers into technology's cold embrace. Valentina Matvienko, the council chair, chimes in with deliberate calm, her voice a soothing balm. Why cling to old cash, she wonders aloud, probing the room with eyes like embers. Why trust paper notes that slip away, vanish in pockets, or tear like fragile hearts? Her words pulse with authentic care, pleading for humanity in the hustle. Yet Belausov's glare sharpens to steel, drilling into her, piercing right through the poised veneer. Is this really about digital safety, or a shield to hide darker motives? The weight of every invisible citizen presses down, their muttered fears echoing unheard. What poison pill will they unveil next to save us? Part 2. From the hallway's devastating freeze, where Belausov's exodus left jaws slacken, morals in question, we've plunged into tech utopias spun by silver tongues. The hall's atmosphere morphs, tension morphing into whispered tech fantasies that mask bleeding wounds. Of course, adds Matvienko, a feather-like chuckle escaping as she shrugs delicately. There's always some grandpa out there, fumbling with his wallet for the first time. Our grandmas would fuss and scold, she smiles, not truly angry, just protective. Laughter ripples across the room, involuntary, from faces softened by screens they rarely touch. But Belausov feels a fire ignite within, not mirth, but outrage at the flippancy. These words, too sleek, too rehearsed, are daggers cloaked in velvet, dismissing hardship as child's play. Matvienko presses on, her confidence unshakable, drawing everyone into her orbit. Ever the peacemaker, she soothes with soft assurances. Let's spare the drama, she urges, her tone rich with lived experience. Don't waste time on hypotheticals, focus on tomorrow. We speak not of personal slights, but bold horizons, transparent paths, and tools that evolve with the times. Grev, slouched beside her like a shadow, seems to awaken. His mask cracking just a sliver, revealing a man complicit in this charade? Belausov catches the tell, his pulse roaring louder, wondering, is this their dance around the truth, or the first crack in their iron facade? Part 3. Building on the hall's fragile fall from Belausov's fiery departure, where tech became the new veil for greed, Matvienko's diplomatic dance pulls focus to digital dreams. Her voice eases the sting, weaving patriotism into silk. Look to China, she declares, and the word lands like thunder, evoking a land transformed without chaos. See how they've embraced this world? It works, nations thrive, lives improve, economies soar. She pauses, letting the vision sink in, heavy as a verdict. We can't wallow in outdated ways, she insists. Progress demands we advance, not stall. Grev leans in now, fully engaged, his indifference peeling away like cracked paint. This topic suits his detachment, abstracting pain into future echoes. Belausov notes the shift, subtle as a passing cloud, but loaded with concealed weight. His instincts scream danger. Is this convenience a cage? Matvienko surges forward, her words gaining traction. The digital ruble will strip away obscurity, she claims, illuminating every transaction like sunlight. No more hidden games in the shadows. Imagine clarity reigning supreme. Against all odds, she glances at Belausov, her tone almost warm. Andrei Rymovich, what say you? The query feels pointed, laced with unspoken challenge. Air thickens with unsaid battles, fingers tapping anxiously on tables slick with eloquence. Suddenly, murmurs rise. Is this friendship? Or a gauntlet thrown down in the arena of power? The icy steel in his eyes hints at storms brewing, yet what seismic shift waits beneath? Part 4. Echoing the digital mirage that masked bitter truths in the hall, where Matvienko's call for progress clashed with Belausov's vigilant edge, the exchange boils to a personal brink. That question hangs like a sword, almost amicable on the surface, but loaded with barbs beneath. For Belausov, it's no light jest, it's a volcano stirring. Some in the audience chuckle nervously, mistaking it for banter, but he senses the echo of past fractures. Memories flicker, skirmishes with officials over policy, debates that carved Russia's future, leaving jagged edges exposed. The room buzzes with anticipation, eyes darting like startled deer. Matvienko remains poised, her silence a fortress, waiting for the tide to turn. Belausov's hand clenches, veins pulsing, as the weight of nations presses, insistent. The floor beneath his feet feels unsteady, whispers of betrayal curling like smoke in the air. What truths lurk in that pregnant hush, ready to shatter illusions? As chairs creak and breaths quicken, the sting of vulnerability prickles every pore, hinting that one wrong move could unravel it all. Did you know that in a heated hall of power, mere words could shatter a nation's trust? Picture the stifling air thick with unspoken tension, the faint creak of chairs under shifting weights, as Russia teeters on a brink where economic formulas devour lives. Under the weight of decisions that ignore the human cost, can a system survive when its architects forget the people? Andrei Belgrusov entered the opulent hall in Duma 5 minutes ago, his steps echoing like a drumbeat of authority. The Minister of Defense had been summoned to a clash with Kirkmangrev, a titan of the nation's banking world. Tired eyes met sharp gazes, but Belgrusov didn't flinch. In that moment, whispers hinted at deep fractures cracking through the corridors of power. His voice cut through the discussion like a blade, dismissing the need for more talk with a fatigue that silenced the room. "I'm too weary to argue," he declared, hinting at blindness among the protectors. Just as a spark ignites dry tinder, Valentin Matvienko tried to intervene, her tone a bomb amid the storm. But Belgrusov, eyes fluttering shut, slumped into his chair and challenged the applauders. "Why clap now? Listen first, you'll be stunned." Without a backward glance, he turned and left, the door clicking softly behind him, a mundane sound that unleashed chaos. The air grew heavy, devoid of breath, as if the space itself mourned his absence. Where had the calm authority vanished? Belgrusov had always cherished that vast chamber, its soaring ceiling whispering of global faiths, long tables bristling with microphones. Seats occupied by the elite who shaped Russia's heart. Words flowed confidently there, not yelled, not doubted, just reasoned explanations for inevitable truths. Relaxed yet composed, he embodied an unbreakable poise, clad in a tailored dark gray suit that fit like armor on a statue of resolve. No frills marred his sharp, non-intimidating features, his gaze pierced like one decoding hidden logics, not fleeting emotions. A faint, perilous smile lurked at his lips, born of a man who'd witnessed too many pretty lies shattered. He chose a peripheral seat, offering a view of all and the camera's scrutiny. Today, as defense minister, he carried the weight of unscreened words and nameless numbers with irrevocable solutions. Professional passion drove him here, to glimpse the nation's economic pulse directly, unfiltered. He settled in, last in line for this year's gathering. Too many economists filled the seats to mimic casual conversation, yet not enough for a true debate over charts, plans, graphs. Energetic presenters waved diagrams like shields, slides flashing up and down, percentages crowning victories, arrows pointing to futures. It all seemed flawlessly rational, too perfect to feel alive. Belgrusov scanned the faces, those automated actuators, the uninterested ones already certain of their cooler receptions. Grief, the speaker, dominated with vigor, his shadow demanding validation. He gestured with habitual ease, nodding to agreeable ears, yet truly listening to substance. On the screen, lines soared, a visual symphony of logic. Grief delved into banking woes, high lending rates clamping down. Credits slowing the populace. Economic gears ground to a halt. Honesty bled from his words, people shunned loans amid stability trappings. Pensions had risen since the 10,000 ruble era, bolstering activity, yet unemployment climbed. In 2026, cuts loomed as the path to solvency, slash benefits, including pensions, to guard financial health. Belgrusov tensed inwardly, a dormant fault line awakening. He grasped it, this wasn't economics, it was about the absent masses, living in fear's grip. Grief felt the tide turning, the hull aligning not out of fear, but sheer self-preservation. Reality couldn't be ignored, the central bank's high rates squeezed merchants, a mathematical vice gripping all. Adaptation pained, but progress demanded it. He spoke of pensions and credits as mere scheme components, human lives reduced to models. How could logic strip away humanity? Belgrusov wondered, fingers burning with restrained fire. Grief balanced social policies, warning that overly generous payouts bred lethargy, discouraging the less fortunate. Notes scribbled, heads nodded, but no questions pierced the air. Grief anticipated backlash, championing rationality for enduring stability. Sliding screens reinforced the narrative, arrows convincing if blind to faces. Belausov recalled real people, veterans in faded hospitals, women queuing for aid akin to the implied need for stimulus to revive borrowing, to jolt economic slumber. Wars raged in service of stimulus? The term stung, a professional wound, a personal affront. As a leader tied to tangible realities, not just capitals, the outrage simmered. Grief paused briefly, opening space for intervention. Valentin Matvienko leaned in, her voice softer, urging sensibility. No pigment wasted on offense, focus on futures, clarity, modern tools. Belausov spun inside, thoughts racing like whirlwinds. Grief's pitch hadn't ignited conflict, his proposal gripped like an icy fjord's edge. Silence descended initially, a surprising vacuum. Matvienko, emboldened, reaffirmed alliances between central banks and key financial entities for robust frameworks. Belausov's stare clung to Matvienko's crown, mind alike with vivid imagery of canines in the mire. Beneath the digital ruble facade lay stark truths. She radiated confidence, phrases gaining vigor, the topic fueling her fervor. Conflict dissolved, she drifted, evident in swaying hands, forward leans, gazes straying. Technology reshaped lives far deeper than imagined. Applause rippled anew, chuckles amid glances, as if unveiling secrets. The digital ruble wasn't optional, it was destiny's command, leaving only nitty-gritty debates. What of grandmothers in villages, her words teased, a playful dismissal of barriers. The discussion veered toward tangible realms, habits clashing with ideals. If a notion gleamed, it must be righteous if pensions morphed into digital flows, a seamless, controllable tide. No more elusive banks, state oversight reigns supreme. Belausov faced a rupture, the digital ruble's allure entwining with hidden manipulations. Would this path erode the very essence of human resilience? As voices ascended, the hall pulsed with unresolved echoes, a lingering scent of impending upheaval. But deep within, he felt the shift, a seismic tremor building, hesion. The air hung thicker now, a palpable fog of dissent thick enough to choke on, as voices climbed higher. Was this the breaking point, where loyalty crumbled into chaos? Fingers whispered warnings in pockets, while the weight of unseen gazes pressed down like an unwelcome hand on the shoulder. Matvienko's words lingered, sweet yet venomous, promising a future veiled in mandatory change. Belausov sensed the trap closing, his pulse a thunderous rhythm against ribs. Pensioners' fates hung by a thread, their digital reflections gleaming unrealistically. Would control birth freedom or forge chains? The tension coiled tighter, every syllable a step toward the abyss. And in that heartbeat of silence, as participants exchanged sideward glances, Belausov braced for the storm about to erupt. 5 minutes ago, chaos erupted in the heart of the city of Duma. A scandal so intense that authorities are now scrambling to control the fallout. The Minister of Defense, Andrei Rymyevich Belausov, immediately stormed into the hall, transforming it into a public arena. His presence commanded attention as he faced representatives from one of the country's most powerful banks, Gertman-Ugrev. As the sounds of murmuring faded, Belausov's words sliced through the air. He declared that the pensioner who dared challenge the system must pay the price. The phrase lingered, a warning of reckoning. The tired minister, worn from endless battles, admitted he was too exhausted to rest, echoing a deep frustration with the police who had turned a blind eye. At this moment, a figure emerged, Valentin Matvienko, attempting to bridge the tense gap. But Belausov, with closed eyes, sank into his chair, the silence was deafening. Without a breath of expression, he questioned aloud, why did everyone applaud? His voice, calm but piercing, carried an undertow of something darker. He urged listeners, hear me out till the end. You'll be surprised. Supporters and skeptics alike watched in suspense. Belausov's departure was as quiet as a whisper, as if insignificant. Yet, that subtle exit sent ripples through the room, shifting the very atmosphere. An oppressive silence descended, hanging heavy with unspoken truths. This room, a symbol of power, was familiar to Belausov. Tall ceilings that seemed to stretch into eternity, long tables with microphones. And the single commanding chair in the center, it all radiated authority. Here, conversations were muted but confident, disagreements were rare, clarity was paramount. It was a space where doubts were silenced by firm explanations. Belausov, clad in a dark gray suit that mirrored his serious resolve, sat with a composed yet sharp face. His presence demanded respect, not through loudness, but through silence, threat, and control. His gaze was unreadable, calculating beyond words, a hero hardened by experience. The slight shadow of a smile played on his lips, almost unnoticed but infinitely threatening. It was the smile of someone who had seen too much to believe in easy solutions. His chosen seat was not front and center but just enough sight to observe everyone, capturing every movement. He was not here to be the star, he was here to shape the course. Today, the halls echoed with economic discussions, but Belausov's mind hovered elsewhere. Years of confidential strategies and unseen battles had built him into a different breed, a keeper of secrets and decisions. His daily life was an orchestration of silent, relentless effort, numbers without number, solutions with no second chance. But today, he was present not as a bureaucrat, but as a guardian preparing for upheaval. Listening intently, Belausov sensed the underlying tension in the room. Economists spilled data and projections, projecting a future driven by formulas and graphics. The numbers danced rising, falling, shifting, but beneath the calculation, a darker truth lurked. The room was a bubble of logic disconnected from reality. A fragile facade that could shatter at any moment. The discussion shifted to the banking sector. The head of finance, known as Grief, exposed the vulnerabilities, the weight of rapid credit activity, the strain on resources, the creeping instability. His voice revealed a professional's conviction, yet Belausov felt a chilling undertone. The banks were trembling under the pressure, and the economy was edging toward a precipice. Grief's words echoed in the hall. People are thinking less about borrowing, he declared, tapping lightly on the microphone. It's slowing down the entire system. We're on the brink. His tone was measured but grave. He warned that social benefits, including pensions, might need to be cut back, a move that sparked silence among the audience. The room's atmosphere thickened. Some pensioners looked uncomfortable, others exchanged nervous glances. Grief continued, unflinching, in the coming year, we'll have to reconsider support programs. Cutting benefits may be necessary to stabilize the financial system. His words hung in the air, heavy with unspoken threats. A finger pointed towards the crowd, a challenge, a question, are we ready for this? Inside, Belausov felt a surge, a wave of cold realization. The outward calm masked a storm within. This conversation was not just about economics, it was about the lives hanging in fragile balance. He glanced at Grief, perceiving the hesitation, a man uncertain and vulnerable. That moment was dangerous. Because if Belausov chose to stay silent, that silence would mark the turning point. The decisive moment. As Belausov lifted his gaze slowly, the room seemed to hold its breath. Matvienko's voice retracted, her words losing weight. Belausov no longer listened to her formulas. Instead, he saw the images, chambers filled with officialdom, polished presentations, and the subtle tremor of uncertainty in the eyes of those in power. The scene played out like a silent, deadly game. The subtle sounds of shuffling papers, the faint hum of fluorescent lights, all comforted by a looming shadow lurking within their midst. This was the moment where decisions would be made. A line was crossed, and the future hung on the brink. The room's focus shifted to a new slide. Lines and arrows moved unpredictably, the paths of money, influence, and control weaving into a complex web. The appearance of logic was perfect, yet beneath it, chaos was brewing. Eyes fixed on the digital graphs, Belausov sensed the truth behind the facade, a fragile balance teetering close to collapse. Grief then referenced the past, recalling a time when people took credit boldly, when pensions hovered around 10,000 rubles, and life seemed less fragile. His voice hinted at a solution, a spark reigniting. We need stimulation, he asserted softly, a code word for the old way, a hint that perhaps humanity's resilience could lift the economy again. But even as he spoke, Belausov knew the game. This wasn't about numbers or policies, it was about the people, about the weight of their hopes and fears. The real challenge was how to restore trust in a system that seemed to be breaking apart. In this quiet hall, an unspoken battle raged. The future was uncertain, but Belausov felt its cold grip. His fingers burned with a slow, relentless tension. The moment of truth was approaching. How far would they go? Would they choose clarity or chaos? As Grief concluded his speech and paused, the hall seemed to hold its breath again. At that precise instant, Belausov's eyes met those of Matvienko. She was nearby, listening, her expression unreadable, her presence almost symbolizing the weight of the entire kingdom's fate. She spoke softly, her voice more alive than the monotony of data. "We must focus on transparency, on modern tools." The words carried a promise, a hope, or perhaps a warning, depending on who listened. And in that moment, the true game began. Beneath the surface, unthinkable shifts were underway. Decisions that would reshape the nation, unseen, silent, inevitable. The question is, who would control the outcome? And at what cost? A moment that changed everything. Not a single person in the room remained unaffected. As if time froze, Andrei Belausov, the Minister of Defense, lifted his head slowly. His gaze cut through the room's tension like a sharp blade. For a while, Valentina Matvienko spoke, but her words seemed distant, losing their weight. Belausov no longer focused on her words, seeing instead the vivid images in his mind: glossy cabinets, flickering presentations, cold conference rooms. Have you ever felt the weight of total silence, where every breath sounds loud? That's how it felt now. The people in the hall, once confident, now froze, sensing that something unseen was shifting beneath their feet. To most, it was just another meeting, yet beneath the surface, something was breaking. Belausov's eyes remained fixed, calm but intense, as if he was calculating the final move in a high-stakes game. His posture betrayed nothing but concealed a storm of decisions made in an instant. The pause stretched long. The room's previously lively atmosphere evaporated into a heavy silence, as if the air itself was thick with unspoken truths. Suddenly, he moved, quiet, deliberate. No rush, no hesitation. He rose from his chair with the grace of someone who knows the moment this room becomes unrecognizable. His actions sliced through the thick atmosphere as if creating a clean line of separation. Without a word, he stepped away from the table, exiting the space like a shadow leaving the scene. His face, illuminated by the harsh lighting, reflected years of experience, battle scars of a man who's fought with realities rather than illusions. This was no ordinary decision. It was final. The silence engulfed everything. Jokes, confident whispers, disappeared. Only the face remained. Tense, expectant, waiting in the stillness. Belausov's gaze met Matvienko's one last time. Then, he spoke softly, almost inaudibly. Not from anger, but from deep conviction. In that quiet, the truth was laid bare. This wasn't about mere politics or policies. It was about something far darker, two worlds colliding, decisions being made that would shape destinies. There was no mercy now, only fate. The room held its breath, and everyone knew nothing would ever be the same again. 5 minutes earlier, in the heart of Duma city, chaos erupted. An incident so shocking it fractured the established order. Now, the authorities scramble to contain the fallout. What secret is hidden behind this sudden upheaval? Who is truly in control? Prepare for revelations that will shake the foundation of the nation itself. 5 minutes ago, the city of Duma was shaken to its core. Everything changed in an instant. Authorities scrambled to contain the chaos, but the ripple of shock was impossible to silence. Behind the scenes, the Minister of Defense, Andrei Remievich Belausov, stepped into the hall, a place designed for calm, authority, and order, and transformed it into a battleground of tension. He immediately took control, establishing a formidable presence next to one of the country's most powerful banks, Gertman Ugrev. The air thickened with anticipation as he spoke, his words slicing through the room's silence. The mention of an elderly citizen, alive, stubborn, and stubbornly trusting, sparked a grim reality: the cost of loyalty, of money, of life itself. Belausov, worn from the relentless grind, declared that he was too fatigued to rest, his voice echoing with exhaustion. The police officers around him seemed blind to the chaos, their silence a stark contrast to the storm raging inside him. Suddenly, a voice tried to pierce the tension: Valentin Matvienko's. But Belausov, with a calculated calm, closed his eyes and sank into silence, leaning back as if to hide an internal storm. He asked with quiet menace, "Why did you applaud? Listen till the end, you'll be stunned." The room was hit with an electric silence. Support us with a like, subscribe, and tell us in the comments, do you agree with Belausov's view? His face was expressionless, almost numb, yet beneath that stillness lay an unstoppable force. He exited the room without a glance, shutting the door softly like an executioner's whisper, leaving palpable darkness in the air. The space was devoid of warmth, of feeling. Only the memory of his presence haunted the hall. Belausov knew this chamber intimately, the towering ceiling that seemed to stretch forever, the long tables equipped with microphones, and the central seat that symbolized authority. Here, words were weighed heavily. Never loud, never vague. Confidence and conviction ruled, arguments fluttered like shadows, doubt silenced by the firm belief that truth lies in certainty. Belausov's demeanor was calm, almost serene, yet beneath it lurked an unspoken challenge, a quiet threat veiled in a dark gray suit. His face was sharp, features subtle but commanding, embodying the dignity of someone who had seen too much to believe easy explanations. He sat off-center, yet in perfect view of the cameras and observer watching the room, the spectators, the unseen currents of power. Today, his mission wasn't to shine at the forefront but to observe, to listen, pressing the limits of control. His days were filled with silent calculations, numbers that determined fates, solutions with no room for error. The room, filled with sorrowful economists and officials, buzzed with graphs and projections, but Belausov saw through the facade. Reality was a formula, a system designed to be stable yet fragile. On the screen, slides flicked with upward and downward lines, percentages, arrows pointing into the future. The logic was relentless, too perfect, too cold. A white man stared intently at the data. Aware of the masks behind the screens, the faces of those who acted automatically, unconsciously mimicking belief in the system. Their confidence was a veneer. Reality, he knew, was far different. Greff addressed the room, speaking about the banking sector's burdens and rising credit activity among citizens, his voice smooth, convincing. But Belausov sensed the underlying tremor and unspoken doubt. The financial system is becoming heavier, Greff said, as if reciting from a script. The hall grew quieter, but the unspoken question hung thick: what prices are paid for stability? Greff pushed on: increased credit activity benefits the economy, but we must also face the social costs. He paused, eyes fixed on the audience, then added, in the coming year, we will need to cut social benefits, including pensions, to maintain stability. The room stiffened. The crowd shifted, some looked away. The silent tension grew unbearable, every word a blow, every pause an echo of impending loss. Suddenly, a ripple ran through the crowd, some fingers pointed, eyebrows rose. No one dared speak aloud, only the cold weight of the truth lingered. Greff's voice remained steady, but Belausov saw the cracks beneath. The wheels of the system turned, crushing hope under the weight of calculations. His own stomach clenched, sensing the storm that was about to explode, an economy balanced on the edge of chaos. Greff's tone shifted, speaking of the need for a rational approach, slow and deliberate. But Belausov knew better. The numbers, the projections, they told only part of the story. Beneath the surface, people's lives frayed at the edges, fears about futures slipping away, about the invisible scars left by relentless austerity. He remembered the faces of wounded soldiers, women in streets clutching humanitarian aid, children clutching bread and hope, silent witnesses to a world in flux. Greff's words about returning to people's incentives fell into deaf ears for those suffering beyond the numbers. The economy moved forward, yet, behind closed doors, a storm brewed. The slide presentation continued, lines oscillating, arrows pointing into a bleak horizon, each datum a cold reminder. The room's noise faded into a dull hum. He watched Greff, sensing the carefully curated roar of confidence, an illusion of control. But the truth was different. The real power lay hidden in the unspoken, in the fears of those living under the shadow of this fragile stability. A sudden suggestion emerged from Greff, reigniting old memories of collective effort, of pushing citizens to stimulate the economy again through credit, through effort. We need to encourage active borrowing, he said softly, almost conspiratorially, like a whisper in the dark. But the weight of what's left unsaid pressed heavily. At what cost? The destruction of personal stability, the unspoken pain of those who saw their lives unravel. Greff paused, eyes flicking to Valentina Matvienko, sitting nearby. She listened, her face calm but perceptive, her silence more eloquent than words. Her voice, when it came, was steady, even more authoritative: we must ensure transparency for the future. New tools and methods are required to navigate this road. Her words, measured and firm, hinted at an unseen plan, a way forward amid the chaos. From the shadows, the room seemed to hold its breath. The system, the economy, the people's lives, intertwined, fragile as glass. Power, control, chaos, nothing was certain anymore. A storm was gathering, born in silence, fueled by numbers, marked by a shared yet hidden dread. Reality's edges blurred, leaving only the question, how long can this delicate balance hold before it shatters? The lights dimmed slightly, an unspoken warning. And everyone knew, beneath the calm surface, the truth was simple yet terrifying: this game of power and control was nearing its breaking point. 5 minutes ago, chaos erupted in the city of Duma. The authorities are now in a state of emergency. The Minister of Defense, Andrei Remievich Belausov, swiftly entered the Grand Hall, transforming it into a commanding space with the influence of the country's most powerful bank, Gert. His presence was commanding, as he prepared to address issues that could shake the nation to its core. As Belausov took the podium, whispers spread. Suddenly, the air grew tense with anticipation. His words cut through the silence. The fact that a pensioner still lives well into old age and must pay for his savings at the start of the new year, this was a problem. The tiredness in Belausov's voice was unmistakable. He declared, "I am too exhausted to rest, and the police are blind to the truth." A moment of tension, then an attempt to connect with Valentin Matvienko. But Belausov's eyes closed, and the room fell into stillness. He sat back, his expression unreadable. Why did he applaud? He daringly implored everyone to listen until the very end. "You will be amazed," he whispered. "Support us with a like, subscribe to the channel, and dare to guess what Belausov might say next." He exited the stage silently, almost routine, yet behind that modest exit, something shifted in the space beyond. No sound, no deep emotion, just a void. The room, once filled with confident voices and promises, now felt hollow, as if something unseen had flickered out. Belausov knew this hall intimately, a place where silence and authority reigned. Tall ceilings, long tables with microphones. And the same chairs where the nation's leaders gathered. Here, sharp words were replaced with confident silence. No arguments, no doubts, only explanations about why each doubt existed. Belausov appeared calm, almost detached. There was a subtle challenge in his demeanor, a quiet, unlawful defiance masked by a dark gray suit that hung perfectly on his frame. No unnecessary adornments, just simplicity, austerity, and a stare that was sharp without being harsh. His posture, firm, controlled, implied dominance. His gaze, precise and calculated, attempted to dissect the room's energy, seeking logic over emotion. A faint smile hovered at the corner of his lips, an almost imperceptible shadow of a hero who has seen too much to trust pleasant words. He didn't sit at the front row or in the center. Instead, he chose a side seat, a strategic vantage point to observe everyone while staying within the camera's eye. Today, Belausov was not just a minister but a figure of a different order, one burdened by the weight of complicated decisions. His days were filled with unspoken words, numbers, and solutions with no second chance. Yet he came, driven by a mix of professional passion, internal peace, and a desire to influence the country's economy directly. He listened, absorbing the murmurs from the hall. This was the last meeting before the year's end. Economists poured in, discussing, dissecting, planning. The room buzzed with graphs, plans, and mathematical models, too precise, too rigid. It felt like witnessing a simulation of reality carried out with German precision. He watched the screen, lines fluctuating. Percentages, arrows pointing toward the future. It all looked logical, just logic, with no emotion. How could numbers tell the story of a nation's future? He saw the faces, some confident, others uncertain. Often, people knew what was coming but dared not speak aloud. They discussed the banking sector's difficulties, credit activity rising and falling like stormy seas. The thing is, people's fears were hidden behind words like growth and stability, but Belausov saw the cracks. The loudest voices paused, hesitant. Some pensioners felt their lives were better than before, yet the economic indicators told a darker story. The conversation turned to social safety, pension shrinking, benefits cut, the economy slowing down, yet no one dared admit it outright. Then Belausov's gaze shifted. Did the people realize what was happening around them? The truth is, they felt it, the silent tremor beneath their feet. The hall grew quieter as the discussion shifted toward reducing social benefits, including pensions, a move that would directly impact millions. A chilling silence filled the room. He observed the crowd's reactions, fingers tapping, eyes flickering, each person knowing deep inside that the ship was sinking. Yet, no one spoke openly. The words stimulation and restart sounded distant, as if spoken from another world. Yet, they were the only hope left. Belausov saw a glimpse of history in the faces before him, those who fought to defend the wounded in old military hospitals, mothers behind humanitarian aid, ordinary people clutching bread and passing judgments in silence. They understood the cost of these decisions much better than any graph could reveal. And then, Belausov made a declaration: if we want a functioning credit market, we need to rekindle the spirit of the people. They once took loans more actively, this supported the economy. Without it, we are lost. The quiet room buzzed again with whispers and subtle nods. He spoke of the danger of destruction of a system that's fragile. The remove of the usual certainty. The growing tension was almost palpable. The country's leadership was on the edge, balanced between chaos and order. He closed his eyes briefly, concentrating, weighing. Outside, the wind whistled against the windows, as if echoing his thoughts. The storm that everyone fears, the storm inside that threatens to rupture everything, was quietly approaching. Then, unexpectedly, Valentina Matvienko sat next to him, listening. Her presence brought a strange sense of relief. Her voice, calm and measured, cut through the static. Let's not waste this opportunity. We must be transparent, modern, and sharp. The people deserve clarity. What secret does she hold? What truths lie beneath her composed exterior? The hall remains silent, yet beneath the calm surface, the storm begins to stir, ready to reveal the unexpected. 5 minutes ago, in the city of Duma, chaos erupted unexpectedly. Authorities scrambled as the situation spiraled out of control. The Minister of Defense, Andrei Rymyevich Belausov, rushed into the hall, immediately transforming it into a tense arena. His presence commanded attention, an unspoken authority that silenced even the most heated voices. He stood before a giant bank known as Gurkmenyugrev, a symbol of power now caught in the storm's eye. As Belausov took the stage, murmurs swirled. A deputy raised a question, but the minister's gaze was unyielding. The room fell into a heavy silence. The air was thick, clinging with anticipation and the scent of tension. His words cut through the room like a blade, deliberate and measured. Tiredness etched across his face, exhaustion from bearing the weight of a nation's fractured hopes. He spoke quietly, almost whispering, "We're too tired to rest. The police are blind to what's really happening." His voice was calm but carrying an undertow of warning. A figure, Valentin Matvienko, tried to connect, but Belausov's eyes drifted shut momentarily, as if sealing himself off from the chaos. Then, in a voice so soft it almost seemed to vanish, he questioned, "Why did applause break out? Listen until the very end. You'll be stunned." His words hung in the air, a tease of the storm yet to come. Support us with a like, subscribe, and share your thoughts about Belausov's stance. What hidden truths lie behind his quiet exterior? You won't believe what unfolds next. Nothing is as it seems. Without a flicker of emotion. His back door closed soundlessly, the quiet before the storm. The room grew colder, emptier, as if the space itself was holding its breath. Belausov didn't linger long, he knew this hall intimately. It was designed for moments like these, calm, stark, unforgiving. The towering ceiling echoed silence, the long tables with microphones stood ready for dialogue shaped by power and persuasion. No loud debates here, just confident exchanges, explanations, doubts dressed as certainty. Belausov's presence was subdued but terrifying, his posture exuded authority without a single unnecessary gesture. His dark gray suit was plain, no adornments, just the mark of a man who had seen too much to fall for illusions. His face was sharp but not harsh, revealing a mind that calculated every move beneath an inscrutable exterior. He sat slightly aside, observing everything with a gaze that saw beyond the surface. His smile, faint and shadowy, was not one of comfort but of warning, dangerous in its subtlety. This was a hero hardened by experience, someone who trusted no assurances in words or appearances. He understood deeply that in this game of power, reality was often a facade, fragile, yet deadly. Today, he was no longer the man of simple duties. As Minister of Defense, his days were filled with plans and numbers, silent, relentless. His mission was to steer the country through unseen icebergs. And yet, in this room, he sought something else, a sign, a whisper of the future. He quietly listened, leaning into the moment, sensing beneath the surface how fragile this peace truly was. The economists presented their charts, lines rising and falling, percentages flashing like distant fireworks. On the screen, arrows pointed to the future, promising, yet suspiciously sterile. It was all too perfect, too rehearsed. Behind the scenes, those in attendance wondered, is this real? Or just another illusion? The scenes, the formulas, the numbers, they seemed disconnected from the truth. Grief, the banking official, spoke with authority. His voice resonated with a tone of certainty, explaining how the banking sector was crumbling under current pressures. The room absorbed his words, thick with the scent of concern. He discussed the surge in credit activity, how people borrowed more, yet felt less secure. The hall's silence was heavy, each word planting seeds of doubt or acceptance. He paused, then reiterated a stark reality. Living standards now are better than before? Or is that just a mirage? Could the old-times pensions around 10,000 rubles, active credit markets, fluctuating unemployment be slipping away? The room shifted quietly, everyone internalized the questions. The economist's answer was grim. If social benefits, including pensions, diminish, stability could be at risk. Someone's finger pointed sharply at the contradictions, yet no one dared speak directly. The discussion intensified when Grief turned to the future. He described a world where the central bank's policies tightened the financial news, pressure on banks mounting. The air grew heavier. His voice was steady, calm, almost hypnotic as he explained, adaptation is painful but necessary. He detailed the steps: modernization, changing programs, restructuring payments. It was not fate, he warned, but systemic reality. Belausov watched silently. The room listened, but beneath the surface, doubt simmered. His mind raced. This wasn't about the economy, it was about the people living in fear, unseen but palpable. How could they accept such harsh measures? His thoughts darkened. Was this the future they deserved? Or mere exploitation? The scene shifted to a different screen. Lines, percentages, and arrows, all aligned with the cold logic of necessity. An acquaintance nearby whispered, "We need to stimulate people again." The hall's silence betrayed no agreement. Trust was fragile. The law of numbers prevailed, mathematical, inevitable, ruthless. Belausov's face remained calm, yet in his eyes flickered a sharp determination. This was no routine debate, it was a battle for human dignity. His experience told him, the system's logic can be unkind, even deadly. But perhaps, somewhere deep inside, hope still flickered, tiny, flickering. He knew the path forward, returning to the roots, reigniting the spirit of the people. The old days of active credit, of real stimulation, those moments of true vitality, must be reclaimed. But he also saw the trap. The destruction of trust, the erosion of strength. The question burned inside him, can true stability be built on such fragile ground? As Grief concluded his speech, the atmosphere grew even more tense. A pause. A heartbeat of silence before the final wave of words. The room hung on his every syllable. Opposite him, Valentina Matvienko sat quietly, her presence a silent anchor. Her gaze was steady, no emotion, just calm observance. Her voice, when she finally spoke, was softer, carrying subtle authority. In that instant, Belausov sensed the shifting tides. The true battle lay beneath words, the unseen game of trust, strength, and wits. As the room cooled again, he tightened his grip on the vision of what lies ahead. The storm outside is raging, perhaps in the halls of power, too. But he remains ready to face it. Quiet, watchful, unyielding. Because in the end, only the prepared can survive the coming chaos. 5 minutes ago, chaos erupted in Duma city, shaking the very foundation of authority. The Minister of Defense, Andrei Rymyevich Belausov, strode into the hall, intent on asserting control. He swiftly arranged a meeting with one of the country's most powerful banks, Gertman-Ugrev. At the mention of the bank, murmurs spread, an unsettling reminder that old promises and outdated power still linger in the shadows here. As the room quieted, Belausov's voice cut through the tension, tired yet commanding. He declared that even the most resilient pensioners would have to pay the price for their savings. His words carried a weight that made the air heavy, an exhaustion that spoke of battles fought behind closed doors, of systems betraying their own people. He looked around, eyes burning with a mix of weariness and defiance, as if warning everyone, the days of blind obedience are over. The room tried to connect with him. Valentina Matvienko even attempted to speak, yet Belausov simply closed his eyes, leaning back with deliberate calm. A powerful statement without a word, an assertion of dominance and exhaustion. His gesture was neither showy nor aggressive, it was pure authority, built on silent conviction. His presence was like a dark monument, unyielding and inscrutable, a fortress whose every line told stories of countless secrets. His face, sharp yet calm, betrayed nothing, no emotion, only a calculated restlessness beneath his dark gray attire. The silence in this place was deliberate, a space designed for reflection or confrontation. His gaze, steady yet distant, seemed to see right through the crowd, analyzing, predicting. A faint shadow played around his lips, a subtle smile hinting at hidden resolve and irony that this hero of power had seen far more than most could imagine. Belausov was here for a purpose, to listen, to judge, to command. The grand hall, with its high ceilings and long tables, echoed with the subdued hum of whispered discussions, confident, deliberate, purposeful. Here, loud words and heated debates had no place. Only clarity and conviction. This was the realm of real decision-makers, the place where truth was spoken quietly but carried weight. He sat apart from the others, choosing a side seat, watching, waiting. His place in the room wasn't accidental. He embodied restraint and silent strength, an unspoken warning that he was watching everything. The room's energy shifted the moment he entered, the usual bravado faded, replaced by a cautious stillness. His presence alone was enough to challenge the entire hierarchy, to expose the fragility of their false confidence. In this moment, Belausov reminded everyone, governance isn't about feeding the bank's greed. It's about protecting the people, defending their livelihoods against the cold machinery of capitalism disguised as progress. His words cut like a blade, sharp, precise. The digital charts flickered across the screens, arrows pointing up and down, percentages flickering, yet they seemed disconnected from reality. Too perfect, too calculated, too unreal. He spoke about the banks, about the weight of their influence, how regulation must be strict, controlled by the state, lest the system fall into the hands of those who only care about profits. The room listened, hypnotized by the logic of cold numbers. But beneath the surface, tension brewed, a silent rebellion, waiting for the right moment to explode. Suddenly, the audience shifted. Some rose to their feet, uncertainty rippled through the hall. A few faces showed signs of doubt, others fear. The once confident crowd now questioned the foundation of their power. Belausov's gaze remained steady, unmoved, unyielding, in the face of surging unrest. He saw through the facade, recognizing the cracks spreading beneath their veneer of control. In the shadows of the hall, a figure tried to speak up, her voice trembling with a mix of courage and fear. But Belausov was relentless. He made a decisive gesture, forbidding her from interrupting. His message was clear: the state exists not for the benefit of wealthy banks, but for the protection of its people. The hall fell silent, those present feeling the weight of his words in their bones. The police officers, tense and alert, watched closely, aware that the fragile order was on the verge of collapse. The crowd hesitated, then slowly sat down, eyes turned inward, emotions swirling beneath the surface. The trust once held in these halls was dissolving, replaced by uncertainty and doubt. Belausov's face, calm yet intense, reflected this turmoil. His eyes, sharp as steel, hinted at an inner storm desperate to hold the chaos at bay. He understood what this moment demanded: a confrontation of truths, a challenge to the outdated systems that no longer serve the nation. He had seen power shift many times before, he knew the rules of the game. Now, he stood firm, an unshakable symbol of resilience, knowing the battle for the country's future had only just begun. The room, the city, the country, all waiting for a sign. Will the old guards fall? Or will Belausov's quiet strength turn the tide? The answer hangs in the air, heavy with anticipation. 5 minutes ago, chaos erupted in the city of Duma, shattering the fragile calm. Authorities scrambled to contain the fallout, and in the midst of this turmoil, Minister of Defense Andrei Rymyevich Belausov took immediate action. He entered a grand hall, one of the most influential banking institutions. Gert Manugrev. As Belausov stepped forward, his presence commanded silence. He quickly transformed the space into a strategic command, an arena where power and influence collided. The air was thick with tension, an electric taste of apprehension. The hall's high ceiling seemed to imprison the weight of unspoken questions. Everyone watched as Belausov, stern and unyielding, addressed the room with a calm that belied the storm outside. Suddenly, the atmosphere shifted, an unspoken challenge hung in the air. A pensioner's faint cry pierced the silence, almost unnoticeable, yet profoundly disruptive. Belausov's eyes flickered, but he didn't react externally. He sat down slowly, deliberately, as if anchoring himself against the chaos. No smile, no gesture of reassurance, just a composed silence. The room felt colder. A sense of emptiness crept in, as if the very soul of the hall had been drained. Inside, Belausov felt the weight of the moment. There was no room for theatrics, no space for vulnerability. His posture was upright, dressed in an unadorned dark gray suit, perfectly tailored, reflecting austerity and resilience. His face was sharp, yet composed, an expression hardened by years of navigating treacherous waters. His gaze was steady, calculated. Almost calculating, trying to decipher where the true danger lay. The voices around him buzzed softly, some talking, some sighing. The room was filled with the nervous crackle of microphones and the faint hum of air conditioning. The slides on the screen flickered in numbers rising and falling like heartbeat pulses, charts and polygons illustrating complex financial models. It all looked precise, logical, almost too perfect. A facade masking the uncertainty beneath. Grief, the banking expert, spoke with a calm authority about the weight of the financial sector. His voice betrayed no doubt. The economy was struggling under the burden of rising credit activity and inflation. The phrase heavier banking system echoed in Belausov's mind. He felt the subtle tremor of impending. The room's collective breath slowed as Grief detailed the dangers ahead, the growth of unsecured loans, the looming threat of financial collapse. Then came the harsh reality: social stability supported by generous pensions was slipping away. The room grew tense. Some critics muttered they remembered the days when pensions were higher, when economic dynamism was visible. Now, the talk turned cold, reducing social benefits, tightening the purse strings. It was a painful necessity, they agreed, but who would pay the price? The room fell silent, but beneath the surface, doubts simmered like hot oil. Grief pushed forward, highlighting the urgency of adjusting policies. The hall's atmosphere grew increasingly oppressive. The room was filled with acrid anticipation. What would happen next? Would the people accept these harsh realities? Or would chaos erupt anew? Belausov sat motionless, absorbing every word, the silent witness. He knew this was not just about numbers, it was about people's lives, those watching from afar, trembling behind their screens, fearing the future. The discussion deepened, about stabilizing the economy, about adjusting the rules of financial engagement. Grief's logic was unassailable. Adaptation was painful but necessary. The room's focus shifted to the charts again, percentages, declining arrows, projections, convincing, yet eerily detached from human suffering. His voice, steady and measured, explained that long-term security depended on these hard choices. Memories flickered: images of soldiers defending hospitals, women behind humanitarian aid lines, ordinary people who understood the cost of stability. Grief's voice softened, hinting at the past's resilience and the need to rekindle that spirit through bold action. Stimulating the economy, he said, means giving people a chance to regain confidence. But Belausov's mind raced. What unseen forces lurked behind these figures? Was this truly the path to renewal, or a carefully crafted illusion? The hall's lights dimmed slightly, the shadows lengthening as the screen shifted, drawing everyone into a web of charts and forecasts. The room grew colder, more distant. Suddenly, a stark question formed: what if the numbers are just illusions? What if, behind the meticulously crafted slides, lies a fragile lie? The room held its breath. The tension was palpable. Belausov, silent as always, contemplated the unspoken truths. The real power wasn't in the figures, but in the unseen forces shaping them. Andrei Remievich Belausov knew the truth. Beneath the calm exterior, he understood the fragile illusion of control. In this hall of figures and projections, the real question remained: who truly wields the power, and who bears the cost? In this game of shadows, the stakes could not be higher. The hall's silence stretched, an unbreakable pause, before Belausov finally broke his silence. His voice was almost a whisper, yet it cut through the room with unmistakable clarity. We must remember, stability is not given. It is earned, and sometimes sacrificed. Behind these words, a revelation lingered. Something unprecedented was about to unfold. The truth was, beneath the calm surface, a storm was quietly brewing. The game was far from over. The real story had just begun. 5 minutes ago, chaos erupted in the city of Duma. Authorities are frantically trying to control the situation. The Minister of Defense, Andrei Rymyevich Belausov, rushed into the main hall, transforming it into a tense arena. He made a commanding move, setting up a formal discussion with a powerful bank, Kirkman-Ugrev, which plays a pivotal role in the nation's economy. As the meeting began, Belausov's voice was calm but deliberate. He addressed deeply rooted issues: how the nation's pension system remains vulnerable, even in the new year. His words sliced through the room's heavy silence. "We are too weary to rest," he said, hinting at the exhaustion of the system and the blindness of the authorities to the real problems. The conversation was supposed to focus on economic models, but Belausov pointed out a brutal truth: social safety cannot be a market tool controlled by banks. It's not a buffer or a reserve, it's an essential human need. He cast a glance toward the giant screen displaying complex graphs, numbers rising and falling, projections, percentages. But his attention was elsewhere. He knew that behind all the data, the heartbeat of the country was its people, their work, their trust, their willingness to live with hope or despair. The room grew silent. Everyone understood that this was no ordinary meeting. This was about lives hanging in balance. Belausov's voice grew firmer as he stepped forward. "I've studied the economy for years," he said. "I've seen the crisis in graphs. But today, I see it in real life." His words became sharp, almost caustic. "When a person can't pay for groceries or their credit card, that's not just statistics. It's the collapse of the entire system." Every sentence had weight, the kind that makes the air feel thick with unspoken fears. He pointed out that the state's existence must be clear. "Why do we exist?" he questioned aloud. "Is it to only serve the economy? Or to serve our people?" His words hung in the air. The room was quiet, but the tension was palpable, an unspoken challenge to everyone present. Grev, the conference's other participant, looked at Belausov with a cautious gaze. He sensed his opponent's fatigue, the exhaustion of a system stretched to its breaking point. "The usual arguments are useless now," Belausov seemed to say. The tiredness in his face revealed the depth of the crisis, not just economic, but existential. He continued with quiet intensity. "The digital era allows the state to experiment," he declared, voice steady but edged with warning. "Especially with those who have always worked and saved. But this experiment could cost far more than money, it could cost our very humanity." His voice echoed in the silent hall, a stark warning wrapped in calm precision. The room's atmosphere thickened, the weight of impending change pressing down on everyone. What future awaits if the system continues to neglect its foundation, the people? As Belausov's words lingered, viewers could feel the dangerous edge and unveiling of truths that no one dared to say aloud before. What will happen next? The answer lies just beyond this tense moment, hidden in the twist of the story yet to come. 5 minutes ago, a seismic event rocked the city of Duma. The entire city is now under the scrutiny of the authorities. Tension fills the air like a heavy fog. The Minister of Defense, Andrei Rymyevich Belausov, immediately entered the hall, transforming it into a battleground of influence. Standing tall amidst powerful institutions, he used the floor to shape the narrative. As he spoke, whispers of unrest spread through the room. Everyone knew something unprecedented was happening. Suddenly, Belausov declared that the so-called digital state had the authority to experiment on its citizens, without consent. His words hung in the air like a chilling breeze, signaling a shift in power. The room grew silent, no applause, no disagreement, just a tense stillness. It was as if a storm was brewing behind the calm exterior. No one moved, no one dared to speak. The atmosphere thickened with unspoken fears. What if this was the beginning of permanent control? Andrei Belausov's stern face revealed nothing, yet beneath it, a storm of thoughts churned. He looked around with a piercing gaze. The high ceiling seemed to press down on the room, a silent witness to the unspoken war of words. The long tables with microphones reflected his every measured move. This was no ordinary assembly. Here, every word was deliberate, each silence deliberate, a chess game played out in whispers. Belausov's face was composed but sharp, revealing a mind calculating every possible reaction. His costume was simple yet commanding, a dark gray suit that spoke of quiet authority, strength hidden in minimalism. No ornament. No distraction, just pure presence. His face, sharp and steady, betrayed no emotion, yet his eyes held a dangerous calm. From this position, Belausov exuded confidence, almost disdain for the chaos around him. The room was designed for silence, for control. As he surveyed the attendees, it felt as if he could see into their deepest fears. His expression suggested he was weighing what was to come, an unstoppable force ready to reshape their world. Every gesture, every breath was purposeful, hinting at the storm brewing just beneath the surface. You could feel the tension, thick as fog, crackling with energy. The moment prolonged, everyone sensed the impending storm. Then, unexpectedly, Belausov's voice cut through the silence, calm, precise, unyielding. "The digital state has the right to experiment," he announced, each word deliberate. "Especially on those who have dedicated their lives to protection." His tone was cold yet unwavering, an ultimatum cloaked in formality. His words sent ripples through the room, some faces clenched, others remained unreadable. The air grew heavier, textures of fear and resolve mixing like oil and water. What was he truly signaling? A revolution or a warning? A heavy hush lingered. The question gnawed at everyone's mind: what price would be paid for this newfound authority? The air was tense with anticipation as silence took hold once more. No one dared to challenge. The room's silence was deafening, but within it, a storm was quietly brewing. Belausov stood firm, an immovable pillar amid chaos. In that silence, the unspoken truth was clear: the future of their country was hanging by a thread, and the next move would define everything. Would resistance ignite, or would fear silence the dissent forever? As the echoes faded, a new chapter began, one nobody could predict. 5 minutes ago, chaos erupted in the heart of the city known as Duma. The streets vibrated with tension, and the authorities scrambled to respond. The tension was thick enough to cut with a knife. Just moments earlier, the Minister of Defense, Andrei Rymyevich Belausov, stormed into a grand hall, determined to shape the future through power and authority. His presence alone made the air hum with anticipation as he commands the room's focus. As Belausov took his seat at the top, the room fell silent. The walls seemed to close in, heavy with unspoken threats and secrets. The influential banking titan, Gert Manugrev, sat quietly, knowing this meeting was about more than just numbers or policies. It was about control, influence, and perhaps, betrayal. His reputation was on the line, the stakes had never been higher. The defining question lingered: who truly held the power here, the man in the dark gray costume or the unseen forces pulling the strings? Belausov's face was calm, yet beneath that composure, a storm brewed. His sharp features betrayed years of experience, too much to be naive, yet not enough to be naive. His eyes, cold and penetrating, seemed to scrutinize every detail of the room. He didn't need to speak, the silence was more deafening than any words could be. Everyone knew why he was here, and no one dared break the spell. The faint scent of leather and the subtle hum of murmured conversations filled the space, a sensory overload of power and anticipation. The room felt like a battlefield where every glance, every gesture, could be the decisive move. Suddenly, Belausov closed his eyes for a brief moment, pressing out the tension like a tired warrior. When he opened them again, they flicked across the room, steady as steel. The unspoken command was clear: no reactions, no distractions. The hall was a fortress of discipline, much like the mind of a seasoned general. His decision was made, quiet yet resolute, and he signaled it with a subtle tilt of his head. The doors closed softly behind him, sealing in the gravity of the moment. In these silent, weighty seconds, something shifted. The atmosphere thickened, and even the air seemed to hold its breath. It was as if the very foundation of the room was vibrating with unspoken consequences. Belausov's presence alone commanded a respect that transcended words. He was a figure carved from the shadows of old battles, a man who had seen too much to trust easily, a hero hardened by experience. His posture was perfect, his costume austere but expensive, a symbol of authority that didn't need embellishment. His face was sharp, yet not stern. It was the face of someone who knew what secrets lie behind confidence, and what dangers lurk beneath calculated calm. The hall, with its high ceilings and long tables lined with microphones, was designed for moments like this. A place where decisions are forged in silence and resolve. Here, people spoke not with loud voices, but with conviction. Arguments were replaced with explanations rooted in logic, not emotion. The screens displayed graphs that moved like living entities, lines rising, falling, arrows pointing toward uncertain futures. It all seemed too perfect, almost believable, yet beneath the surface, doubt lurked like a shadow. Belausov's gaze fell on the economist Grief, who stood at the forefront with a voice that echoed a sense of unwavering certainty. His words pealed through the air, describing the banking sector's struggles, the rise in credit activity, and the impact on everyday citizens. He spoke as if his facts were divine truths, yet the meticulous tone hinted at something else, an underlying message, one carefully masked. His voice resonated with authority, but Belausov, veteran of countless crises, listened with a keen eye. Something about this presentation didn't sit right, perhaps it was too cold, too calculated. The room's silence grew heavier as statistics and projections filled the space. The idea of reducing social benefits, including pensions, floated like a dark cloud over the room. The proposed measures sounded rational on paper, but to Belausov, it was clear they weren't just numbers. They represented real lives, real fears lurking behind the figures. The pensioners, living now on a fragile peace, had once thrived with more security. Now, that stability was slipping through their fingers, replaced by austerity and uncertainty. Grief's speech was relentless, emphasizing the necessity of adaptation and sacrifice. Yet, Belausov saw the truth behind the words, the subtle hesitation, the cracks in the narrative. He knew this wasn't merely about economics, it was about control, about shaping society's future with cold precision. The display of slides, the arrows, and the percentages were just the surface. Beneath it all, a deeper reality threatened to unravel the very fabric of the nation. The room shifted again, the atmosphere tightening. The familiar confident tone of Grief gave way to a more cautious rhetoric, hinting at potential reactions that hadn't yet appeared. The audience's reactions varied, some wrote notes quietly, others looked confused, and a few exchanged glances filled with unspoken questions. Belausov remained still, his mind darting through the implications. Every word was a puzzle piece, every gesture a message unseen. Then, the dialogue shifted and appealed to the past, invoking memories of a time when pensions were higher, and people's lives seemed more secure. Yet, this nostalgic tone was laced with an ominous undertone. It was a reminder that those days, long gone, could never return. The future, as painted by these officials, was a landscape of necessity where sacrifices weren't just options but imperatives. The discussion grew more intense, yet Belausov's figure remained unmoved. His presence was like a silent tide, shaping the flow of conversation without uttering a word. He examined the figures on the screen, lines, percentages, and graphs that hinted at a fragile balance, a balance that could tip at any moment. For him, it was clear, victory in these halls wasn't measured by applause or accolades. It was measured by the silent acknowledgement, those unspoken truths that only he could see. What secret was hiding behind these sterile numbers? And who truly paid the price for the decisions made in this room? As the meeting drew to a close, Belausov knew the game was far from over. The true power lay hidden in shadows, in unseen alliances, in quiet betrayals. And he, with his steely gaze and unyielding resolve, was ready to face whatever awaited beyond those doors. Because, in this world, control isn't just seized, it's maintained through silence, strategy, and an unbreakable will. Just 5 minutes ago, chaos erupted in the heart of the city of Duma. Rumors flew like wildfire, buildings trembled, and the authorities scrambled. No one saw it coming, an event so shocking that it shattered the fragile peace of the nation. Now, the government is under siege, trying to contain what seems unstoppable. How did everything collapse so suddenly? What secrets are hidden behind this crisis? Prepare for an unfolding story of betrayal, power, and unexpected twists that will leave your mind racing. In the center of this storm stands Andrei Rymyevich Belausov, the Minister of Defense, calm, resolute, yet carrying the weight of 1,000 secrets. Minutes after the chaos ignited, he steps into a grand hall, one of the most influential in the country, where power is forged and decisions are made. The room is massive, with high ceilings that seem to stretch forever, long tables lined with microphones, and a single chair at the center where the fate of millions is silently decided. Every sound echoes, the hush of breath, the faint clink of the microphone, the tense heartbeat. Belausov enters with measured steps, his face sharp yet composed, clothed in a simple dark gray suit that whispers of authority and restraint. The room falls silent, as if holding its breath. His steps are deliberate, each movement echoing a silent command, calm, yet dangerous. As he surveys the room, his eyes reveal an inner storm. Here, no room for frivolous words or empty promises. Power is silent in his presence, and every glance, every pause, speaks volumes. The atmosphere thickens like an impending storm. Belausov's face, sharp and emotionless, masks a flood of thoughts. His gaze is fixed, but beneath the surface, tension crackles. The room's silence isn't peaceful, it's pregnant with unspoken truths. A faint smile plays on his lips, shadowed and fleeting, almost like a warning. It's a smile of someone who has seen too much, who knows the game and the lies that hide behind it. He doesn't appear in the spotlight, instead, he chooses to sit slightly aside, observing everything, waiting for the moment to strike. Old memories flicker, images of wounded soldiers, crowded hospitals, desperate families lining up behind aid stations, reminding him of the stakes. Today, he is no longer just a defense minister, he is a sentinel guarding the future. The room's atmosphere shifts, dissonant yet controlled, as economic charts and policy slides flicker on the screen, percentages rising and falling, indicators of impending chaos or calm. It all looks too perfect, too calculated to be real. Suddenly, the words of an economist named Grief cut through the tense silence, describing the strained banking sector, the growing weight of credits, and the slipping grip on social stability. His voice, confident yet burdened, paints a picture of a system on the brink. The air thickens with the smell of cold metal and worn paper. The perceptible tension in the room is electric, each person absorbing the message, internalizing the threat. Grief explains how the economy is slowing, how social benefits are being cut, how pensions are diminishing, the fabric of everyday life pulling apart. His words are like a key turning inside a lock, revealing uncomfortable truths. Every phrase lands like a blow, yet few dare to voice the disturbing implications. The room tightens as the future seems to hang by a thread. Voices rise, some confront, others retreat into silence. The weight of decisions presses down like heavy iron on their chests. Belausov watches, every nerve alert, sensing the dangerous undercurrent beneath the words. The economic figures flicker on the screen, arrows pointing up and down, percentages that seem like a countdown. He feels it, something shifting inside him, a storm yet to be unleashed. The room remains tense, as everyone comprehends the unspoken. This isn't just about numbers, it's about lives on the edge, about the silent scream of those outside these walls. Grappling with the dire truths unveiled, Belausov's mind races. He knows what it takes to steer through storms, calculated moves, unseen strategies. His fingers tingle with anticipation, a strange blend of anger and resolve. Nearby, an aide whispers, tentative but urgent. His voice lowers, powerful in its quiet confidence. Belausov's gaze remains steady, unblinking, a storm beneath calm waters. The room's atmosphere thickens, the tension palpable, these are moments that define a nation. His silence is deafening, every second stretches into eternity. He understands that the real battle isn't just economic, it's a battle for heart and mind, for trust and control. As the figures continue to flicker, he sees the cracks widening, hidden conflicts, silent rebellions, the very foundation trembling. And then, in a voice that cuts through the silence like a blade, Belausov speaks. Calm, firm, yet filled with underlying purpose, he outlines measures, adapting, modernizing, adjusting. His words, precise and deliberate, cast a shadow of inevitability. He talks of returning to first principles, reigniting the economy with stimulation and confidence. His voice resonates within the walls, but the true question remains, will these words be enough to hold the cracks at bay, or will they crumble under the weight of reality? Behind his composed exterior lies a deep understanding. This is more than numbers, this is a war for the soul of the nation. Every phrase, every calculated move, tightens the grip of power, but also exposes the fragile line he walks. In the shadows of his mind, he knows the future is hanging precariously, each decision a step closer to salvation or catastrophe. The room waits, breath held, for what comes next. What secret is truly hidden behind the facade of calm? Will Belausov's strategy save the country or plunge it into chaos? The answers lie just beyond the edge of perception, waiting to reveal themselves in the next breath, in the next decision. One thing is certain, the game is on, and the stakes have never been higher. Just moments earlier, Belausov had confronted the minister in a charged corridor, questioning the essence of their shared purpose. Shocking, had the leaders truly forgotten the cost of lives beyond the charts? The air hung thick in that sterile hallway, saturated with unspoken defiance. Scuffles of polished shoes echoed softly, a sharp contrast to the muffled hum of distant voices filtering through closed doors. Belausov felt a subtle tremor in his palms, the fabric of his crisp suit jacket brushing against his skin like an unwelcome reminder of burdens borne. Why shield the vulnerable from the blade of austerity, he wondered, his mind racing with faces of weary pensioners clawing for scraps. Pushing onward, Grief maneuvered into another economic segment. A seasoned figure, he spoke with the ease of someone accustomed to navigating labyrinthine corridors, even in abandoned silence. Belausov, simmering with quiet fury, locked eyes with him. The white walls seemed to pulse under the unforgiving lights. "Do you grasp what I'm driving at?" Grief asked sternly. Belausov halted, his posture unyielding. "I get it." The response slipped out cold. "This isn't the norm here." He pressed on, voice rising sharply against his own colleague. "Publicly. Harshly." Grief met his gaze, unflinching. "I'm not opposing my own people." Grief retorted, his tone measured. "I'm against forgetting our unified purpose." He moved to elaborate, but Belausov gestured dismissively, turning away without lingering. No yearning to prolong a discussion that might expose his own unease. Eyes darted around, some smirking, others nodding knowingly. Belausov pretended to check his phone, feigning indifference. The corridor's atmosphere crackled with tension, not raw conflict, but a visceral awareness of fragile egos at play. Scents of stale coffee and faint cologne lingered, evoking memories of late-night deliberations. Grief proceeded deeper into the building. He navigated these passages like old scars, witnessing careers forged and fallen here, protocols that crumbled without steadfast guards. That's why Belausov's words targeted not the auditorium, not the absent masses, but the very heart of the gathering. A cluster of veteran deputies barred his path near the exit, their faces weary from perpetual scrutiny. Belausov addressed them without volume. "Do you realize it's been ages since such truths surfaced?" Grief paused, absorbing the weight. "Indeed, it's been far too long." The deputies dispersed without a whisper. Grief retraced to the hall. The space expanded, icy air biting at exposed skin, footsteps reverberating with clarity. He paused by a paneled window, gazing out at the bustling square, cars gliding, silhouettes hurrying as winter's chill nipped at the wind. What twists lurked in this labyrinth of power, where one man's defiance threatened to shatter the illusion of harmony? Across the glass, a figure stirred, eyes locking. The storm within Belausov was far from spent. "You won't believe what Belausov unleashed next," words that rattled the very foundation of their elite circle. Just a short while back, he challenged Grief head-on, fiercely questioning their collective amnesia in a tense hallway showdown that left onlookers reeling. Grief advanced a step, transitioning into another facet of the economic discourse. He was an expert, carrying the poise of decades spent weaving through mazes of bureaucracy, even in deserted stretches like empty halls. Belausov, seething inwardly, shot Grief a piercing stare. The surroundings blurred into stark white canvas under harsh fluorescence. "Comprehend my intent?" Belausov demanded, voice a low growl. Grief froze mid-stride. "Affirmative," Grief replied coolly. "Norms don't apply here," Belausov insisted. "Direct. Brutal." Against his comrade. Grief stared back intently. "Opposing colleagues isn't my aim," Grief clarified evenly. "Forgetting our shared mission, that's my battle." He began to expand, but Belausov waved him off dismissively, sidestepping the exchange and retreating without a hint of reluctance. No inclination to extend discomfort for either. Glances crisscrossed the hall, some amused, others speculative. Belausov feigned preoccupation with his device, preserving calm. The atmosphere intensified, not from clash alone, but from an acute realization of fragility. Faint fragrances of brewed beverages and lingering scents mixed with the chill of conditioned air, stirring echoes of exhaustive sessions. Belausov proceeded onward. He knew these routes intimately, from births to burials of reputations here. Protocols emerged effortlessly if unchallenged. Hence, his message pierced not the audience, not the outsiders, but their core unity. Veteran deputies intercepted him at the threshold, expressions etched with fatigue from endless observation. Belausov spoke softly. "Aware of how long truth has been buried?" Grief paused again, digesting. "Precisely. Too extended." They parted wordlessly, dispersing like shadows. Grief returned to the vast chamber. Winter's bite invaded through the expanse, each step resounding crisply. He lingered at a window pane, surveying the plaza vehicles in motion, figures bundled against frost. Sense of exhaust and distant food stalls wafted faintly, a tactile prickle on his skin recalling harsher realities. What unforeseen turns awaited in this power maze, where defiance promised seismic upheaval? A silhouette outside mirrored his gaze. Tension coiled tighter, as if unseen forces converged. Outside, in the unforgiving chill, Belausov spotted something that shattered his restraint. Had the enemy infiltrated their sanctum? The stakes surged higher in this clandestine dance. 5 minutes ago, in the city of Duma, chaos erupted. The government was in uproar. Now, the authorities are in turmoil, clinging to power. The Minister of Defense, Andrei Rymyevich Belausov, swiftly entered the hall. His presence was commanding as he assembled a public gathering with one of the nation's most influential banks, Gerkman Ugrev. His every step echoed authority. Once Belausov spoke, it became clear that even the most seasoned leaders were shaken. The concern over pensioners, once seen as untouchable, was now on the table. The future hung in the balance. Belausov, exhausted, uttered a grim phrase: the tiredness of endless burdens, the blindness of those sworn to serve. Meanwhile, political veteran Valentin Matvienko attempted to interject, but Belausov's silence was deafening. He closed his eyes, leaned back, and silently questioned, "Why are you applauding? Listen carefully, what happens next will blow your mind." Support us with a like, subscribe to the channel, and leave your thoughts in the comments. Do you agree with Belausov's view? Without hesitation, Belausov turned away, leaving the hall empty, silent. His departure was smooth, almost dismissive. Yet, that simple act shifted the entire atmosphere. The space itself was vast, high ceilings, long tables, microphones ready for speeches. It was a chamber of authority. No loud voices, no heated arguments, only calm, confident exchanges. Here, doubt was rare. Conversations revolved around justifications, not chaos. Belausov, dressed in a dark gray suit that reflected seriousness without show, exuded quiet strength. His expression was sharp but calm, radiating a sense of internal resilience. He didn't sit at the center, instead, he observed from the sidelines, watching everything with a measured gaze. His face carried a subtle, shadowed smile, a smile that concealed unspoken truths. He had seen too much to believe in glossy explanations. He preferred to remain in the shadows, void of bravado, aware of the game's true players. The hall's atmosphere was thick with anticipation, a silence that begged for a breakthrough. Belausov's confidence hinted at a storm brewing just beneath the surface. He knew this was more than mere policy, it was about the people suffering behind the scenes. On the screen, data flashed, graphs trending upward and downward, percentages, projections, all too perfect, too safe. It felt surreal, like a staged performance. The faces watching, the voices offering reassurances, all seemed disconnected from reality. In a corner, Belausov watched Grief, an expert discussing the banking sector. His voice was smooth, methodical, like a well-oiled machine. He spoke of decreasing consumer credit and effort to slow the economy. The words painted a picture of control, yet in Belausov's mind, something darker lurked. He listened intently as the argument unfolded, a tightening grip on society, pensions slipping into the shadows, social benefits cut back as a forced necessity. It was as if the very fabric of trust was dissolving, thread by thread. Grief's speech highlighted a stark truth: the social safety net was fraying. Pensions that once provided security now threatened to shrink. Just as economic pressure increased, the hall's tension escalated, some shuddered at the inevitability. He paused, then continued with cold certainty. The economy, he declared, must adapt. Reducing social spending wasn't an option, no, it was a necessity. A painful but unavoidable step to stabilize the system. Yet, behind his words, Belausov sensed the echoes of countless unseen struggles. Losses that couldn't be quantified. The people without voice, living in constant fear, those whose lives depended on fragile promises. Grief displayed slides, lines ascending and falling, charts that told only half the story. Reality, hidden behind the polished facade, was darker. The system relied on mathematical rules, but now those rules threatened to crush the very people they were meant to protect. As the discussion continued, Belausov's mind drifted to the past images of wounded soldiers, women standing behind humanitarian aid, faces marked by hardship. They understood the true cost of policies that ignored human suffering. He reflected silently, if the market collapses, the country suffers. If the people stop trusting, everything falls apart. A sudden, sharp pain shot through him, his fingers tingled, a reminder of the weight he bore. Grief wrapped up his report with a confident, almost boastful tone, talking about reforms, adaptation, the endless march of progress. Yet Belausov saw through the veneer. This was a strategy, a scheme designed to keep the system afloat while slowly eroding the foundation. He watched as others focused only on the superficial data, percentages, graphs, numbers, yet missed the human element. The real economy, the true measure of success, wasn't in charts. It was in the lives of those struggling behind the scenes. Suddenly, Grief proposed a bold idea: return to lending, stimulate demand, a spark to restart the sluggish economy. The words echoed in the room, but Belausov knew better. This was a calculated move. That spark could ignite chaos if mismanaged. He noted how the officials around him nodded, behavior conditioned to accept authority. The room's atmosphere grew tense with unspoken doubts. Meanwhile, Belausov's gaze fixed on the screens, patterns, symbols, summaries, everything seemed convincing, yet hollow. It was a puzzle. The truth was hidden behind layers of reassurance. In his mind, he saw old soldiers defending wounded comrades. Women behind humanitarian stalls. People unaware of monetary policies but feeling their impact: bread prices, card payments. Grief circled back to the core message: if the credit market is to thrive, demand must be reignited. He talked about past vitality, how active credit use once supported growth. The unspoken message was clear: revival requires a direct link to the people. The room remained silent, no one dared oppose the logic. Belausov knew this was a fragile balance. The entire system depended on faith, on trust placed in unseen mechanisms. When Grief finished, Belausov caught a glance from next to him, Valentina Matvienko, listening quietly. Her presence was a reminder: power was more than words, it was reputation. Her voice, delicate yet firm, broke the heavy silence. She emphasized transparency and modern tools as necessary future steps. Her words hinted at a shift, an opening to the unknown. But what if this new transparency reveals truths too painful to face? What will emerge from beneath this calm surface? And who will truly pay the price? In that quiet moment, as Belausov gazed at the wall, he understood. The story wasn't just about policies, it was about humanity, about human resilience. The system could falter, but the spirit of the people remained. His mind raced: will they choose to rebuild or watch everything collapse? The answer, hidden in the shadows, could change everything forever. 5 minutes ago, chaos erupted in the heart of the city. The authorities are scrambling, trying to contain what feels like an unstoppable surge. Suddenly, a figure steps into the spotlight: Andrei Remievich Belausov, the Minister of Defense, whose calm presence seems almost unnatural amid the turmoil. He quickly establishes a public space in a bank's conference hall to address the nation's pressing crisis. As Belausov speaks, he mentions the persistent influence of the Grev Bank, hinting at deeper corruption tied to pension funds and public trust. His words carry weight, yet beneath his measured tone lies a fatigue, a weariness born from countless battles fought behind closed doors. He admits he's tired, overwhelmed, and that the silence in the room speaks volumes. The police are blind to truths others see clearly. The tension is palpable, everyone waits, senses a storm brewing just beneath the surface. Then, unexpectedly, Valentin Matvienko attempts to join the conversation. But Belausov, with a decisive gesture, silences him. Closing his eyes for a fleeting moment, he tilts back in his chair, an image of calm concealment masking what's truly brewing inside. His gesture is subtle, almost dismissive, yet it changes the atmosphere entirely. The room becomes heavier, air thickening with unspoken fears. Belausov's posture tells a story, powerful yet restrained. His dark gray suit blends into the shadows of the hall, unadorned but commanding. His face, sharp and composed, reveals nothing, and yet hints at a wariness, someone who has seen too much to believe in easy solutions. The ceiling above is vast. A silent witness to decisions that will shape the future. Every attendee is aware they are not just discussing economics, they are confronting the very heart of the nation's fears, embedded in every word and glance. As Belausov observes the room, his mind drifts to the past, an intricate web of alliances, betrayals, and strategic moves. The industry buzzes with formulas, charts, figures, everything seemingly logical, but devoid of life. The cold, calculated environment echoes the systems he's fought against all his life. The confidence in these projections masks a fragile undercurrent, because beneath the surface, doubts lurk. The room's silent tension is broken by the voice of the economist Grief, who discusses the banking sector's struggles. His tone is clinical, almost detached, as he details the rising credit activity among citizens, how it feeds into economic sluggishness, how social benefits threaten stability if cut back. The air thickens as he speaks of the dangers of escalating debt, of the dangerous slopes the economy is sliding down. Suddenly, a shift occurs. The room's mood intensifies, some scoff, others narrow their eyes. The pensioners, who are better off today than a decade ago, are accused of complacency. The memory of 10,000 ruble pensions haunts the speakers, those days when credit was more active, and uncertainty grew louder. They hesitate, sensing that critical truths remain unspoken. The real fear is the impending degradation of the social fabric. Grief's tone turns colder, more calculated, advising that in the new year, tough decisions are unavoidable. Pensions and social benefits must be cut for the country to stay afloat. No one dares refute him openly, yet inside, a storm of emotion brews. The audience's faces remain passive, but their minds whirl with questions. Is this truly the future? Or just another chapter in the cycle of betrayal and sacrifice? As the speech deepens, Belausov's gaze narrows. He notices a subtle sign, an uncertain crack in Grief's confidence, a flicker of insecurity. The room, once confident with charts and figures, now feels like a house of cards. Every slide, every arrow on screen, appears too perfect yet too fragile to trust. The scene evokes a memory of soldiers returning from war, lives sacrificed, the bitter taste of lost ideals lingering in the air. Then, Grief suggests a return to stimulating the economy through consumer loans. The words hang heavily, tied to a past where simple measures brought hope. But the room's energy plunges, the audience senses it's more than numbers, it's about real lives, about those in the shadows, suffering in silence. They know that increasing credit is just an illusion, another fleeting fix. Belausov, watching closely, feels the pulse of the nation. His fingers burn with restrained emotion. He understands this system, built on rational schemes, hides a core of fear, fear of honest questions, fear of truth, fear of change. The president's voice echoes in his mind, the unspoken command to navigate these turbulent waters with care. Yet, beneath his calm exterior, a storm rages. Grief concludes his segment with a final plea for stability through rigorous adaptation. He speaks of reforms, of modernization, words that mask the reality. There's no stopping the bleeding, only slowing it. His voice is almost soothing, an empty reassurance layered with underlying menace. The audience listens in silence, grasping the grim truth: nothing is as simple as it seems. Suddenly, the scene shifts. Memories flood in, soldiers defending wounded comrades, women standing in lines for food, faces hardened by hardship. These images are tactile, rough fabric, cold metal, a faint smell of bread. They remind Belausov of the true cost, the human toll beneath the strict logic of the system. He recognizes these truths. The economy is not just about numbers, it's about people. The ongoing debate about credit, social security, and stability masks a deeper struggle for survival. The government can manipulate data, but the human spirit remains unconquered, resilient in the face of despair. The question remains, how much longer can this masquerade last? And what's the price of the next move? In this quiet storm of power and uncertainty, one thing is clear. The false veneer of stability is cracking. Beneath it lies a vulnerable nation, waiting for the moment when truths can finally be spoken aloud. Will the system break, or will it adapt once more? The answer hangs in the air, heavy and imminent. 5 minutes ago, chaos erupted right in the heart of Duma city. The authorities are scrambling, the streets are trembling. A shocking event unfolded that left everyone stunned, an incident so profound it threatens the very foundation of the nation's stability. What could have caused this upheaval? And what secrets lie behind the sudden collapse of order? In the midst of this turbulent moment, Defense Minister Andrei Remievich Belausov stepped into the hall calm, commanding, as if the world outside didn't exist. He swiftly transformed a tense public space into a strategic arena. His every move seemed calculated to mask the storm roiling inside him. With a resolute voice, he announced bold plans involving the country's most powerful bank, Gertman Ugrev. Why this bank? Why now? The room held its breath. As Belausov spoke, a strange silence fell. His words were deliberate, measured, yet beneath them, a storm brewed. He claimed that the nation's pensioners, those once quiet pillars of society, are now pawns in a larger game, expected to sacrifice their hard-earned savings for the supposed good of economic reform. Did he really mean it? Or was this just a mask? The tension in his voice hinted at an inner conflict, fatigue, perhaps, or a deep frustration. His eyes closed briefly, as if trying to block out the gravity of what was unfolding. And then, suddenly, he fell silent. Without fanfare, he turned away, leaving the room in suspense. The soft click of the door closing echoed like a verdict. It was enough to make the atmosphere heavy with unspoken truths. Something pained and unresolved hung in the air. No one dared to move, no one dared to speak. The weight of his silence was deafening. The hall, with its high ceilings and rows of microphones, seemed frozen in time. This was not a place of debate, but a battleground of ideas, fears, and hidden motives. Belausov's figure exuded quiet authority. His dark gray suit was plain and unadorned, no embellishments, no distractions, just a man carrying the burden of decisions that could change everything. His face was sharp, yet not stern, more like a blade honed from years of witnessing the chaos of power. The subtle smile lurking at the corner of his lips suggested a mind working beneath the surface, analytical, cautious, always strategic. From his vantage point, he watched the room with the patience of someone who sees beyond the surface, someone who understands the fragile line between order and collapse. He was not here to stir applause or seek approval. His presence was enough. Theatrics were unnecessary. His gaze remained fixed, calm but intense. He knew what this moment meant. He knew that the economy, the social fabric, the trust of millions, everything was on the edge. In this hall, under these towering ceilings, decisions were made that could ripple through the entire nation. The air was thick with anticipation. What comes next could alter the course of history forever. He listened carefully, absorbing every word spoken, every signal sent. The room was filled with familiar voices, economists, security officials, politicians, all trying to interpret the unspoken. But Belausov knew. This meeting was about more than numbers. It was about the future of ordinary people, those who sleep peacefully at night yet face uncertainties every day. His own face, calm and composed, betrayed a hint of inner turmoil. Beneath his serious exterior, a storm was brewing, a storm born from the realization that behind these policies, real lives, real fears, and real hopes hung in fragile balance. And still, he remained silent. Because in a moment like this, words could be misleading. He understood that true power lies in silence and unspoken recognition of the danger brewing just beneath the surface. When the economy's pulse races, when the policies threaten to drown the very people they should serve, hesitation could cost everything. Here, in this hall, truth and deception dance a delicate waltz. Suddenly, vectors on the screens shifted. Graphs and lines swayed up and down. Numbers flashed, percentages, forecasts, priorities. Everything looked logical, too perfect, almost artificial. It was a mirror of the underlying system, rigid, precise, unwavering. Yet, behind that veneer of certainty, doubt lurked. Belausov observed the faces, those who knew they had to accept these truths, even if they questioned them deep inside. The room was filled with a quiet tension. Could these figures really reflect reality? Or were they mere illusions designed to hide chaos? In the midst of this controlled environment, the Minister of Defense thought about the past, those old military hospitals, where wounded soldiers found hope amidst despair, women behind humanitarian aid, holding their breath behind queues. These images lingered in his mind, reminding him of what truly matters. He understood that beneath the dry figures and graphs, real lives were at stake, people whose futures are shaped by policies far beyond this room. And he knew, without a doubt, that restoring stability begins with trust. Not technological advancements or economic formulas, but with the confidence of the everyday citizen. Confidence in tomorrow, in the promise that their sacrifices won't be for nothing. That's why he spoke now, not just as a defender of the state, but as a protector of those who quietly depend on his decisions. His words were a pledge, an unspoken vow, that despite the turbulence, the nation's hopes are still alive, flickering like candle flames in the darkness. But something changed. a new voice emerged, a voice softer yet more compelling, cutting through the tension. Valentina Matvienko, seated nearby, listened intently. Her presence, calm and measured, seemed to emphasize a truth beyond words. She radiated a quiet authority more powerful than raw speech. Her words underscored a hope for transparency, for modernization, for a future where power is rooted in clarity and trust. The atmosphere thickened with unspoken emotion. Everyone sensed the stakes, these policies, these debates, they all circle back to one essential question: can the nation survive the storm of its own doubts? The hall seemed to hold its breath, awaiting the next move. The lines and percentages on the screens flickered, illusions of control. But beneath that surface, something vital was stirring, something unseen, yet profoundly felt. In that moment, the future felt fragile. Almost hang in the air. The room seemed to pulse with a hidden truth: the true strength of a nation lies not in its wealth or power, but in the resilience of its people's trust that their leaders will stand firm, speak honestly, and never forget the lives they serve. Because, in the end, each decision echoes in the quiet corners of many souls, decisions that could either unite or tear apart a nation. And as Belausov watched the screens fade into silence, he silently wondered, how much longer can the fragile thread of trust hold? And what will the next chapter bring? The story is far from over. The storm is only just beginning. If you long to hear honest, unfiltered conversations, then follow the source of truth. Share your own story in the comments, what you observe, what you hide, what hardly comes to mind aloud. Your voice matters. Thank you for listening all the way through.